To completely destroy me, my little brother chugged an entire bottle of poison right in front of Mom and Dad. Right after that, everyone in the room, including me, heard his inner voice echoing in our heads.
Why? Why would my brother poison me? I just said I didn't want to go back to the countryside. Now, he wants to kill me.
Before I could even process what was happening, Dad snatched up a rattan cane and whipped it down hard on me.
You animal. Arthur is your little brother. I can't believe you'd actually try to kill him. I'll beat you to death, you vicious little jerk.
The cane howled through the air and slashed viciously across my back. The agonizing pain instantly dropped me to my knees. It forced my head up, my gaze sweeping past my father towering over me, my mother, and my sisters before finally landing on a scrawny teenage boy. My eyes blazed with an overwhelming, terrifying hatred. In my previous life, our driver, Uncle Liam, died a brutal death in a car crash to save my father. Driven by guilt, George Winters, my father, adopted his only son. The boy became Arthur Winters, and the youngest son of the Winters family, the wealthiest household in Granville. He became my little brother. From that moment on, my life turned into a living hell. My guaranteed college admission spot was stolen. Teachers falsely accused me of cheating on exams. And during the college entrance finals, I was drugged and tossed into a women's bathhouse. Endless disasters piled up one after another. Every time I tried to explain myself, my family and my friends absolutely refused to believe me. It wasn't until I was tortured to a horrific death and left wandering the earth as a ghost that I finally learned the truth. Arthur was actually a transmigrator with a cheat system. He could broadcast his inner thoughts to anyone's mind anytime and anywhere. Using this power, he perfectly crafted his image into an innocent, sweet little angel. At the same time, he only needed to casually think a few manipulative words, and I would instantly become completely despised and abandoned by everyone around me. Because of this, he sucked away every ounce of my good luck and ultimately doomed me to die a gruesome death in a car crash. Thankfully, in my past life, I had scrolled past a video claiming that spamming "please subscribe to Anna Recapping" into the sky while you are a ghost would activate a rebirth system. So I casually do that, and it actually activates the system, pulling me back from the dead. Otherwise, I would have been rotting in hell by now. Right now, it was only the 3rd month since Arthur moved in. Somehow, he got his hands on some candy-flavored poison and deliberately drank it in front of the whole family just to frame me. Blinded by fury, my dad resorted to the family's physical punishment. In my past life, I begged and explained, but that only made him beat me even harder. I ended up lying in a hospital bed for 3 straight months, left with ugly scars covering my entire back. But now that I've been given a second chance at life, there's no way I'm just sitting here waiting to die. When George raised the cane to strike me again, I suddenly shot my hand up and caught it, gripping his wrist in an iron lock.
You actually dare to fight back.
George roared, his face red with rage. Why wouldn't I? I stood up, my voice dead cold. The trauma of 2 lifetimes turned my gaze into pure murder, terrifying my own biological father so much that he instantly stumbled back a few steps.
Did I tell you to get up off your knees?
George continued to scream his lungs out. My mother, Diana, glared at me with absolute disgust and snapped,
"Disrespecting your parents and poisoning your own brother? Is this how he raised you?"
My sisters immediately chimed in, pointing their fingers at me.
Arthur has already suffered enough, but you just keep bullying him over and over again. Mom and Dad are just punishing you for your own good. Hurry up and get on your knees to take your punishment.
My icy gaze swept across the entire family. My eyes no longer held any of the warmth or kindness they used to. The Winters family had always been dominated by women and lacked sons. My mother, Diana, gave birth to 6 girls in a row before finally spending a massive fortune to hire a surrogate overseas just to have me. My grandfather absolutely adored me. He kept me by his side and personally raised and mentored me since I was a baby. Because of that, I never spent much time with my parents or sisters. Whether it was my mom and dad or my 6 older sisters, my relationship with all of them was completely hollow. Ever since my grandfather passed away from an illness 3 years ago, I became completely invisible in this house. And after Arthur moved in, my place here was basically non-existent. Even the maids and servants dared to give me attitude. But now that I've been given a second chance at life, I won't. I won't hold on to a single shred of hope for this so-called family. To think that the grand chairman of the Winters Group is actually a blind fool who can't tell right from wrong. I looked down and let out a dark chuckle. I spat out every word through gritted teeth. No wonder Grandpa always said you were a lost cause. That's why he focused all his energy on raising me as the heir. Turns out he saw right through your blind, idiotic nature from the very beginning.
What the heck did you just say?
George trembled with rage at my words. The rest of the Winters family stood there dumbfounded. They couldn't believe that this was the same submissive piece of trash they used to know. Did I say something wrong? I tilted my head and shot back. You just blindly believe whatever anyone tells you. You couldn't even be bothered to look for proof before viciously attacking your own flesh and blood. If you aren't stupid, you're just plain evil. If he told you garbage smelled sweet, would you take a bite too? Suddenly, Diana lunged forward and slapped me fiercely across the face.
You ungrateful little brat. Is that how you talk to your parents?
I poked my tongue against the inside of my cheek and scoffed at her. Have you ever actually raised me? Let me remind you, Grandpa was the one who raised me. Diana's face flushed with embarrassment as she instinctively raised her hand again. Seeing this, I let out a cold laugh. You want to hit me again? Isn't this just because you couldn't give birth to a son yourself? And because I was born through a surrogate? Is that why you've always hated the sight of me? And as for the rest of you sickening hypocrites, I swept my hand across the room, pointing straight at each of my sisters. Aren't you all just jealous that Grandpa gave me 30% of the company's shares? Is that why you're all so bitter? You all walk around acting so high and mighty like you're some kind of royalty. Word by word, I brutally ripped away the polite masks they wore to hide their ugly truths. In this second life, I see everything with perfect clarity. To heck with this wretched family and your fake love. I'll let those lashes and that slap from earlier slide. Let's call it my final payment for the blood we share. I glared at their pale, stunned faces and spoke with a deadly calm. But if there is ever a next time, I promise you, I will demand an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Try me if you don't believe it. The day I turn 18 next year is the day I cut all ties with this family. Until then, you all better stay out of my way. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to throw you all out on the streets. After all, Grandpa left this villa to me. Do I make myself perfectly clear? In an instant, the entire room went dead silent. Right then, Arthur's inner thoughts echoed in everyone's minds once again.
I heard a rumor that my oldest brother was the real head of the Winters family. If the old man hadn't died so early, everyone would be at his mercy. I can't believe it's actually true.
The family's faces turned completely pale with shock. George, feeling his authority being directly challenged, flew into a rage and raised his cane once more.
You little punk. You think you can rebel against me? I'm going to beat a lesson into you today. I'll show you who really runs this house.
The cane lashed down mercilessly across my face and head. The strike split my scalp open. Warm blood trickled down my forehead, instantly smearing across my entire face. It seems you took my warning as a total joke. I grinned, letting out a dark chuckle. A flash of pure madness filled my eyes.
Do you think I'd hit you this hard if you didn't talk back to your elders?
George roared defensively, his voice trembling with guilt. Diana immediately chimed in from the side.
Exactly. Your father is just teaching you some manners.
My sisters quickly jumped in to back them up.
You were the one in the wrong here. Hurry up and apologize to Dad. If you keep acting crazy, we'll throw you out on the streets.
I didn't say a word. I just smiled, my laughter growing increasingly manic and bone-chilling. The anger, the grievance, the sheer murderous intent built up over 2 lifetimes erupted at that very moment like a volcano. Moving like lightning, my left hand shot out and violently grabbed George by the hair. With brutal force, I slammed him down to his knees while my right hand smoothly snatched the cane right out of his grasp.
Stop! What the heck are you doing? Are you insane? He's your father.
Everyone screamed in absolute disbelief, but I didn't give a darn. I raised my hand and rained blows down on him without mercy.
Stop! I'm your father! Stop hitting me!
George shrieked in agony, crossing his hands across his face. Even his ears were covered in welt marks. I lashed him until his skin was torn open, dripping with blood. His blood-curdling screams drew all the maids and bodyguards in the mansion running. Seeing this brutal scene, they stood there utterly paralyzed.
You little monster. Stop it right now.
Diana stomped her feet in absolute fury.
Are you blind? Get over here and help. Hurry.
Quick, save Dad. You absolute monster. You'll go to hell for beating your own father.
My sisters shrieked, beside themselves with rage. Just as the bodyguards moved to grab me, I tossed George aside like a piece of worthless trash. I let him lie there, whimpering and groaning, with a face full of blood. As my cold gaze swept across the room, the bodyguards froze in their tracks, too terrified to take another step.
Quick, get the car. Get him to the hospital.
Diana yelled frantically. Hearing this, George frantically waved his hand to stop her. Through gritted teeth, he hissed,
No hospital. Call the family doctor.
Diana froze for a second, but then quickly understood. After all, if word got out that a son had beaten his own father, it would be a massive slap in the face to George. He'd become the laughingstock of the elite circle, and the Winters family's stock prices would inevitably plummet. Right then, Arthur's inner voice echoed once again.
No wonder my older brother dared to beat our dad. He already calculated that Dad wouldn't dare leak this to the public. That level of scheming is just vicious, despicable.
Hearing his inner thoughts, the rest of the Winters family ground their teeth in renewed fury. Their eyes were practically shooting daggers at me. George thought for a moment and coldly commanded,
Someone get in here. The 7th young master is having a violent manic episode. Call the psychiatric ward immediately and have them drag him away.
Wow, impressive. I couldn't help but chuckle. My own flesh and blood father was truly a ruthless piece of work. With the Winters family's power in Granville, if he said I was crazy, then I was officially crazy. Doing this wouldn't just save him the humiliation of being beaten, he could legally and openly steal the company shares my grandfather had left me. Plus, he could have me tortured to his heart's content inside the asylum. 3 birds with 1 stone. Diana hesitated, feigning a bit of pity.
Honey, shouldn't we think this through a little more? If people find out the Winters family has a mental patient, it'll completely ruin our reputation.
No way. If he dares to beat his own father today, he'll poison the entire family tomorrow.
Exactly. He didn't just hurt Arthur, he attacked our dad. I refuse to acknowledge such a heartless monster as my brother. He has to be punished.
The whole family clamored, everyone shouting over each other, looking absolutely certain they had me beat. The corners of Arthur's mouth twitched up into a smirk. On the surface, he was playing the peacemaker, but deep down, his inner thoughts were doing nothing but fanning the flames, making the atmosphere even more tense. Hey, I gave a cold laugh, pulled out my phone, dialed a number, and said flatly, Uncle Grant, you haven't let your old bones go soft after resting these past few years, have you? Bring your men over to the old estate. Everyone sucked in a sharp breath. George turned deathly pale from sheer panic.
You little brat. Why are you calling that old ghost? Are you trying to start a war?
Uncle Grant is 56 this year. He built everything from scratch alongside Grandpa Winters. He is a founding patriarch of the family empire, commanding immense respect in both the underworld and legitimate circles. He also has massive connections in business and politics. In my past life, I really was an absolute idiot. I knew perfectly well that Uncle Grant was a trump card Grandpa specifically left behind for me to smoothly take over the group. Yet, just because the family didn't like him, I chose to push him away. Now that I've been given a second chance at life, holding actual power in my own hands is the only thing that matters. To heck with so-called family ties. In less than 5 minutes, the roaring engines of multiple cars echoed outside the villa. Under everyone's terrified gazes, an elderly man in a traditional silk suit stepped out, followed closely by over 20 bodyguards pouring from the vehicles. They stormed through the villa's main doors like an absolute army.
Greetings, young master.
More than 20 bodyguards bowed in unison, their voices echoing with terrifying authority. Uncle Grant walked in slowly, leaning on his cane. The entire room instantly went dead silent.
Uncle Grant, what are you planning to do with all these people?
George was visibly panicking. Uncle Grant swept his gaze across the room and immediately grasped the situation. He quietly took his place behind me and sneered.
The young master summoned me. How could a man with 1 foot in the grave dare not show up? It seems any random piece of trash thinks they can just walk all over the young master now. The old master would be cursing from his grave if he saw this nonsense.
This little punk poisoned his own brother and beat up his own father. Don't I have the right to teach him a darn lesson?
George argued, his voice laced with guilt. Uncle Grant just let out a dry laugh.
You really don't have the right.
In this standoff, Uncle Grant clearly held the absolute upper hand. Even though George's current connections and wealth were top tier in all of Granville City, he still couldn't shake a founding patriarch like him anytime soon. This elderly man still controlled vast amounts of underground power. If they really clashed head-on, George wouldn't stand a chance. I casually tossed the rattan cane aside. I swaggered over and dropped onto the sofa. See that? If someone ticks me off, I deal with them directly. At the very least, I just have Uncle Grant tie them up and feed them to the fishes. Why would I bother playing these petty little mind games? Arthur, have you been watching too many cheap soap operas? Is framing people the only thing you know how to do?
I didn't!
Arthur frantically waved his hands to defend himself, but the rest of the Winters family couldn't help but look at him with suspicion. It made sense. If this guy was crazy enough to beat up his own father, there was no need for him to play such convoluted games.
I didn't frame my brother! You guys have to believe me!
Arthur pleaded anxiously, while silently chanting in his mind.
It was clearly my older brother who forced me to drink that poison. Why would I risk my own life just to frame him?
The expressions on the Winters family members' faces kept shifting. One by one, their gazes turned toward me, filled with absolute disgust. I couldn't help but chuckle softly, to think that in my past life I was actually killed by such a pathetic little trick. Now that I could hear his inner thoughts in this life, I realized just how laughably amateur it all was. As long as I didn't give a darn about family ties, this kind of manipulation was completely powerless. I could even expose his lying inner thoughts right here in public and finally force the Winters family to snap back to reality. After all, the rest of the Winters family were victims too. Even though they enabled it and got me killed, in the end they also died by Arthur's hands. But in this life, they're nothing more than a bunch of soon-to-be strangers I'm cutting ties with. I wiped the blood off my face, my tone completely cold. Uncle Grant, feed young Master Arthur his medicine.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Grant nodded, his face completely blank. He gave a casual wave of his hand, and two bodyguards immediately stepped forward.
What are you doing? Stay back!
Arthur's face drained of color in pure terror.
How dare you? Are you trying to murder your own brother?
The rest of the Winters family quickly shielded him behind them. I raised an eyebrow, putting on a look of total sincerity. Didn't he claim I was the one who poisoned him? It would be a shame if I didn't make his lie come true, wouldn't it?
Don't you dare!
George roared in anger. Why the heck wouldn't I dare? I kicked the coffee table flying, my face twisted in absolute rage as I roared. Anyone who messes with me pays the price. You think you can actually protect him? Pour it down his throat.
Yes, sir.
The two bodyguards violently shoved the Winters family aside, dragging Arthur's scrawny little body right out.
Save me! Oh God, save me! Pesticide is going to kill me! Please save me!
Arthur begged in absolute terror. His inner thoughts were screaming in panic.
How could my older brother do this to me? Is it just because Mom, Dad, and my sisters love me more? He's actually trying to murder me just because of that. I don't want to leave Mom, Dad, and my sisters.
Stop it.
Diana finally exploded in anger.
If you lay a finger on him, you are no longer my son. You little monster. Are you trying to destroy this family?
Arthur is our brother too. How can you be so vicious to your own brother?
My sisters were all talking over each other, cursing and screaming at me. If it were the old me, my heart would have been completely shattered. But now they were nothing but pathetic clowns to me right in front of everyone's eyes. The bodyguards clamped their iron-like hands around Arthur's jaw, forcing it open, and poured the entire bottle of candy-flavored pesticide straight down his throat. No matter how much he thrashed around, wailing in agony, he was still forced to swallow a massive amount of it. The Winters family desperately tried to intervene, but the bodyguards blocked them completely. The men Uncle Grant brought this time were absolute elites. Even the lowest-ranking ones were ex-special forces and top-tier international bodyguards. The villa security guards were completely powerless against them. At that moment, the entire Winters family was reduced to lambs waiting to be slaughtered. It wasn't until Arthur had choked down the entire bottle of pesticide that the bodyguards finally tossed him aside.
Hurry, get him to the hospital now.
George frantically yelled for the servants to come over, scrambling to rush him to the emergency room. I just let out a cold scoff and didn't bother stopping them. This kid had way too many secrets on him, and it wouldn't be any fun if I killed him off too early. Mrs. Winters, now, are you all going to get the heck out of here yourselves, or do I need to have my men throw you out? I asked with a lazy, careless smirk. George was practically jumping out of his skin with rage.
You are not the master of the Winters family yet. What gives you the right to kick us out?
My sisters immediately started chiming in with furious agreement while Diana just sneered, her face completely dark.
Don't think you own the place just because the old man handed you the deed to this villa. You're still a minor, and your guardians call the shots. If you keep acting like a lunatic, I will call the cops right now.
You seriously don't think Uncle Grant can cover this up, do you?
George gritted his teeth furiously.
If people find out that I, the head of the Winters family, got kicked out of our very own ancestral home, I might as well just call the cops myself and blow this whole thing wide open.
I let out a low chuckle, shrugging without a single ounce of care. Fine. Anyway, once I turn 18 in a year, I am cutting all ties with you. Uncle Grant, send some men to station at the villa and take charge of security. And clear out all the rooms on the second floor. From now on, without my permission, no one sets foot up there.
Understood?
Uncle Grant agreed without a single moment of hesitation. The Winters family members were so furious, they felt dizzy as if waking from a dream. Was this really the same easily bullied Henry? There were 4 rooms in total on the second floor, the brightest and best suites in the entire villa. They used to belong to me, my parents, and my eldest sister. But ever since Arthur joined the family, my room was quickly snatched away. In the end, I was literally kicked out to live in the servants' quarters. Now that I've completely torn up our relationship, why on earth would I show any of them respect? With a big wave of my hand, I ordered the bodyguards to start throwing their stuff out. Every single piece of junk in those rooms was tossed right out. I am taking the entire second floor all to myself. This move nearly gave the entire Winters family a collective heart attack. My eldest sister Lily complained with a face full of grievance.
He threw my things out. Where am I supposed to sleep? Am I really expected to squeeze into a tiny guest room?
Ah, he has Uncle Grant backing him up now. Just bear with it for now.
Diana sighed helplessly.
Dad, could it be that we really wrongfully accused Henry? He's never usually like this.
Whispered my 4th sister, Rose.
Nonsense. Have you forgotten how he pushed Arthur down the stairs last time? And he even led the bullying against Arthur at school. I saw all of that with my own 2 eyes.
Exactly. Just yesterday. He even stole Arthur's pocket money.
My sisters chattered all at once, firmly believing that I was just born evil. Diana tried to comfort everyone.
Don't worry about it. Henry is just all bark and no bite. In the past, whenever he threw a tantrum, we just had to coax him a little bit. And wouldn't he always go right back to being our obedient little dog?
George nodded with a cold sneer.
Exactly. He's just an underage brat, throwing a massive tantrum. He's just desperately trying to get his family's attention. That's all. Give him a few days and he'll behave.
Rose stayed completely silent on the side. She couldn't shake the feeling that Henry was actually dead serious this time.
We should go check on Arthur first. He was force-fed poison. Who knows if he can even be saved?
Yes. Hurry to the hospital. How could we just forget about him?
The Winters family's hearts were instantly thrown into a panic again. They immediately ordered their men to prepare the cars and rushed frantically toward the hospital. At the entrance to the emergency department of Renee Hospital, Director Lane personally brought a team to welcome the Winters family.
Oh, Mr. Winters, you've arrived. Please hurry. Please have a seat.
George's brows were furrowed in deep worry.
Just take me to see my son. He was force-fed poison. Can you still save him?
Hearing this, Director Lane let out a very awkward chuckle.
Please rest assured, Mr. Winters. The truth is, your young son wasn't poisoned at all.
Huh?
The entire Winters family gasped in unison. Dr. Lewis gulped nervously and nodded.
The young master simply had a large amount of liquid block his nose and mouth, which caused some mild choking. We just cleared his airways and he is perfectly fine. He's resting comfortably in his room right now.
With that, Dr. Lewis led everyone straight toward the ward. When they saw Arthur looking completely normal inside the hospital room, the expressions on the Winters family's faces instantly turned extremely ugly.
Mom? Dad? Sisters, when did you guys get here?
Arthur looked visibly panicked. He offered a weak, dry explanation.
I'm sorry. I think I made a mistake. What my brother made me drink wasn't poison.
Silence spread through the hospital room. Even the most clueless members of the Winters family could tell something was off. But before they could even question him, Arthur's aggrieved inner voice could be heard once again.
What do I do? Mom and Dad are definitely going to think I framed my big brother on purpose, but I really don't know what happened. Was he just playing a prank on me?
Only then did the Winters family let out a sigh of relief. Diana's eyes softened as she spoke.
Don't blame yourself. It was all just a misunderstanding. Just don't be so careless next time.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a misunderstanding. Everything's fine now that it's cleared up.
Arthur's face was full of gratitude, while his inner voice immediately went back to buttering them up. Only Rose wore a strange expression, still feeling like something was seriously wrong. Inside the villa, in the first-floor study, Uncle Grant and I sat on opposite sides of the tea table with 2 bodyguards keeping a strict watch at the door. No one was allowed anywhere near. Because I possessed memories from my past life, coupled with my photographic memory since childhood, for the next 7 or 8 years in Granville City, all sorts of major and minor events were crystal clear in my mind. With this kind of absolute foresight, I naturally had to make foolproof preparations. Most of the Winters family were just blind and foolish. I would absolutely never acknowledge them again. As for Uncle Grant, he was completely trustworthy. He had no children, was fiercely loyal, and had watched me grow up since I was little. He loved me just as much as his own flesh and blood. Uncle Grant, staying with the Winters family is a total waste of your talents. Why don't you work for me on the outside? We can coordinate from the inside and out to deal them a heavy blow. I smirked. After all, even though a guy like George lacks ability, he's deeply rooted in the corporation after all these years, and his businesses are crawling with leeches. Taking full control of it wouldn't be easy. We might as well tear the whole thing down and rebuild it. Uncle Grant's interest was instantly piqued. He raised his hand, signaling me to keep going. I took a sip of tea and said straight to the point. In 2 days, the head of the Titan Group will die in an accident. After his death, the company's stock will violently crash. So, Uncle Grant, on the 3rd day, you must start contacting the minority shareholders of the group while simultaneously scooping up shares on the open market. Then simply dump them all on the 12th day.
The head of Titan Pharmaceuticals is going to die?
Uncle Grant gasped sharply. Though he had no idea where I got this information from, he still nodded and agreed. Also, find some time to buy the villa next door to house our men. From now on, I want 3 teams of bodyguards around me. 1 team will be responsible for my personal safety when I go out. The other 2 teams will rotate shifts to guard the 2nd floor of the villa around the clock, especially the study and my bedroom. You must guarantee that absolutely no one steps foot inside and gradually replace all the maids and drivers in the villa with our own people.
Understood?
Uncle Grant readily agreed to it all. That night, the Winters family hastily picked at their dinner before storming back to their rooms, still seething with rage. The very next morning, bright and early, Arthur and I were getting ready to head out, one right after the other. We were both high school seniors, studying in Class 2, Grade 12, at St. Ray International. Whether we liked it or not, getting good grades was a huge deal in a wealthy household like this. A massive Mercedes G-Class was waiting quietly at the main gate. The driver, Will, spotted us walking out and quickly jogged over to greet us. He smoothly took Arthur's backpack with one hand and pulled open the back door of the car with the other, saying,
"Respectfully, young master. Watch your step.
Thanks for your hard work, Brother Will.
Arthur smiled warmly, but the smug arrogance in his eyes was impossible to hide. Will slammed the door shut, then turned to look at me with a mocking smirk.
Sorry about this, young Master Henry. The car's a bit too cramped. Why don't you just ride your bike like you always do? It's good for the environment."
Everyone gasped in shock. The maids working nearby all sucked in a sharp breath. They stared at Will like he was an absolute idiot. Does this guy seriously have a death wish picking on young Master Henry? Does he have no idea what happened yesterday? The truth is, this dumb guy doesn't know anything. He took the day off yesterday for his brother-in-law's wedding. He has zero clue that the entire power dynamic in the Winters family just completely flipped. The servants whispered eagerly among themselves. Will caught bits of their whispering and immediately frowned. In the past, just to suck up to George and his wife, he had always treated the two boys entirely differently. With Arthur, he was absolutely respectful and waited on him hand and foot. But when it came to Henry, he would make up every excuse in the book to brush him off. The other drivers for the family were busy chauffeuring George, his wife, and the 6 sisters, so eventually, Henry just started riding his bicycle to and from school. Will was so used to him never fighting back that his attitude had become increasingly arrogant. But who could have predicted that today would be totally different? Before he could even figure out what was going on, a massive, dark blue, fully bulletproof Bentley Mulsanne rolled right up to the front doors of the villa. 6 towering men completely decked out in sharp black suits split up seamlessly. Some moved to open the doors while others immediately set up a security perimeter. And 2 of them quickly stepped forward to flank and protect me.
Young master, right this way, please.
I completely ignored the utter shock and sheer terror on Will's face. I flashed a smirk right at Arthur, whose face was completely twisted with envy and hatred, before turning and stepping into the car, completely surrounded by my guards. Uncle Grant had already bought Villa number 16 right next door. 3 full teams of bodyguards, 18 men in total, were on standby around the clock. Even George himself didn't have this kind of crazy flex. How could Arthur not be seething with jealousy? You have to understand, keeping just 1 professional bodyguard on payroll costs anywhere from $1 to $3 million a year. 18 bodyguards? That runs a solid $40 to $50 million a year. If you look across all of Granville City, the number of billionaires who could afford to keep a security team of that size on staff all year round could easily be counted on 2 hands. A mere adopted son like Arthur could only stand there and drool over it. The Bentley Mulsanne then slowly cruised right out of the Villa district. Right now, there are 2 bodyguards stationed in each vehicle. The squad captain even took it upon himself to personally protect me. The security in the vehicles was completely airtight. From the outside, you couldn't even tell which of the 3 cars I was riding in. The security level was absolutely top-notch. Half an hour later, Arthur and I arrived one after the other at St. Ray International High School. The moment our 4 cars pulled into the campus parking lot, they immediately drew a crowd's attention.
3 Bentley Mulsannes, and they're the custom bulletproof models too. Who the heck is that?
No idea. But that car next to them should belong to Arthur, the adopted son of the Winters family.
The crowd buzzed with curious whispers. In this elite private high school in Granville City, the students were all either wildly rich or highly privileged. And at the very least, they were genius students the school had poached from all over the country at a high price. Because of that, everyone here had a pretty sharp eye. Normally, Arthur would be the center of attention wherever he went, but today, when he stepped out of his car, nobody even gave him a second glance. That was because all the students and teachers had their eyes subtly glued to the Bentleys. The doors of the 3 cars swung open. The bodyguards stepped out and immediately went on high alert. I was wearing a navy blue tailcoat-style school uniform. On my left hand was an exquisite black gold jade ring, and on my right, the latest Patek Philippe men's watch. My natural elegance made me look exactly like a wealthy young heir, stepping right out of a TV drama.
Young Master Winters! It's him! Holy crap! Bringing 6 bodyguards to school. Does he really need to flex that hard?
The crowd was absolutely blown away. Once again, I couldn't be bothered to give them a second look, and I certainly didn't care how high profile I was being. Being reborn meant I was bound to go on a ruthless rampage, which would inevitably tick off all sorts of sketchy characters, so I couldn't possibly be too careful. I definitely did not want to die all over again for some inexplicable reason. The campus is safe enough for now. You guys just stay in the cars and rest. Take turns grabbing food and using the restroom. Just don't cause any disruptions to the school's daily routine. I gave the orders calmly while rubbing the ring on my left hand.
Understood.
The bodyguard captain gave a slight nod.
Young master, just give the word if you need anything at all. Just press your emergency communicator, and we will be there in under 1 minute. Also, the communicator has our custom-built tracker inside it. In the event of a kidnapping, we can lock onto your position instantly.
Okay. I nodded in satisfaction. Uncle Grant and his crew really were top-tier professionals. Once my net worth crosses the 10 billion mark, I definitely need to hire a few more teams of bodyguards, at least 12 guys per team. Otherwise, I just won't feel completely safe walking around. After giving a few more quick instructions, the bodyguards stepped back. I turned around, grabbed my backpack, and swaggered right into the senior year Class 2 classroom, soaking in the jealous, hateful glares of my classmates. There were about 30 kids in this class. The moment I walked in, the noisy chatter abruptly died down for a second. From the middle of the room, a few blatantly malicious glares locked right onto me. Arthur was leaning back in his chair lazily, surrounded by 4 or 5 arrogant rich kids. Those guys used to be my loyal little lapdogs. They used to bow and scrape in front of me just to get on my good side. But after word got out that I'd fallen out of favor, they instantly jumped ship and became Arthur's lapdogs. In my past life, I was gentle, polite, and never fought back. Plus, having the title of a true young master backing me up meant that even though I wasn't the favorite, nobody dared to mess with me. The worst those lapdogs ever did was throw a few snide remarks my way, nothing too crazy. But today, after taking hit after hit to his ego, Arthur clearly wasn't going to let me off the hook so easily. During morning prep, he kept sighing dramatically, putting on a sad face, instantly hooking the curiosity of everyone around him.
What's wrong, Arthur? You feeling sick? Did somebody pick on you? If something's up, you've got to tell us. Don't just keep it all bottled up.
Darn it! Does that punk Henry still dare to mess with you? I'll freaking destroy him!
A few rich kids grumbled in annoyance.
Don't overthink things, guys. My older brother is really good to me. Let's all just focus on studying.
On the surface, Arthur defended me with a gentle voice, but his inner thoughts conveniently drifted into everyone's ears.
Henry is my big brother after all. No matter how much he bullies me, I just have to swallow it and endure. If I ruin the family's reputation, how can I ever face Mom and Dad for adopting me?
Holy crap. You're way too forgiving, Arthur. You can actually tolerate that. You're the one Chairman Winters and his wife love the most. That guy. Henry didn't even come out of Mrs. Winters' own womb. What the heck are you so scared of him for?
The classmates were filled with righteous indignation once again, and many of the poorer students also felt a deep sense of injustice. They automatically pictured a melodramatic soap opera in their heads, where the evil rich stepbrother relentlessly oppressed the poor adopted son. One by one, their gazes filled with a bit more disdain. But at the end of the day, I was still the true young master of the Winters family. No matter how furious the crowd was, they only dared to vent their frustrations with words. Seeing this, Arthur pressed his advantage. His inner thoughts continued to broadcast.
Big brother made such a massive scene at home yesterday. He actually dared to hit his own biological father. I'd better figure out a way to talk some sense into Mom and Dad. Otherwise, what if they really cut ties with Big Brother?
Sigh! He beat up his own dad. That's insane. With Chairman Winter's temper, there's no way he won't cut ties with him.
Haha. Looks like the great young Master Winters is about to get kicked out of the house.
While the crowd was gloating over it, a few of the rich kids couldn't help but feel tempted. They had been wanting to teach Henry a lesson for a long time. It was just that they had always held back because of his status, afraid to cross the line. But if he really had pushed his family to the point of cutting ties, then what the heck were they afraid of? The perfect chance to kick a dog while it was down had finally arrived.
Who's going to do it? Hey, Jason, aren't you going to step up? Arthur did you a huge favor last time, you know.
The group exchanged a glance before their eyes landed on a boy with a buzz cut. His name was Jason Jones. His family had been in business for generations and held overwhelming power and influence. His uncles and elders had tremendous sway in Granville City. He used to be a childhood friend who grew up alongside Henry, but under the manipulation of Arthur's inner voice, the two had now completely fallen out. Jason was a total menace who feared absolutely nothing in this world. With an encouraging look from the crowd, he immediately walked up behind me with a mocking smirk. In just a few words, he chased away the students sitting at the desk behind me, then sat down with a cocky, slouched posture. With a loud scrape, he shoved the desk right up against my back.
Well, so you finally get what's coming to you, huh? Weren't you acting all tough? Keep acting tough, come on. Mommy and Daddy don't want you anymore.
Childish. Buzz off. I couldn't be bothered to entertain these childish tricks. Now that I had been reborn, I just wanted to spend every single moment improving myself. Right now, my backpack wasn't just filled with regular textbooks. I had physics and math competition books, finance books, hacker programming guides, university calculus, and advanced mathematics textbooks among a whole bunch of others. With my IQ of 180 and my photographic memory, I could easily get into Tsinghua or Peking University, even if I took the college entrance exam right now. Jason was completely enraged by my dismissive attitude. He kicked my chair and roared.
Always like this. From the time we were kids, you've always looked down on me, haven't you? Now that you don't have your family backing you up, let's see how cocky you can be.
I will say this one more time. Back the heck off. I flipped the page of my book with elegant composure. If you keep harassing me, the Jones family won't be able to protect you.
Oh really? I'd love to see how a stray dog like you is gonna make the Jones family unable to protect me.
Jason leaned back with a mocking smirk, crossed his legs, and kicked the desk in front of him. Seeing this, Arthur quickly pretended to smooth things over.
Let's just talk this out nicely, Jason. Aren't you and my big brother childhood friends?
Stay out of this, Arthur. Today, I'm going to teach him a lesson for you,
Jason said with a cold sneer.
I absolutely loathe people who act all high and mighty every single day, acting like they're so freaking special. When in reality, even the maids at home can walk all over them, like we don't darn well know.
Hearing that, a bunch of the rich kids burst into laughter. Even many classmates were gloating. Facing everyone's mocking stares and Jason's continuous provoking kicks against my chair, I let out a helpless sigh and casually tossed my book aside. The next second, I grabbed the ballpoint pen on my desk and spun around with lightning speed. My left hand locked around Jason's throat while my right hand began furiously stabbing the pen into his cheeks, his eyes, his mouth, his head. Again and again, my strikes were lightning fast and absolutely ruthless. Agonizing screams instantly echoed through the room. How could a sheltered brat like Jason possibly defend against such a suicidal, desperate assault? Arthur was instantly paralyzed with shock, eyes wide. The entire class was dumbfounded, erupting into terrified shrieks. After a series of blood-curdling screams, Jason finally paid the price for his provocation. I didn't even know how many times I stabbed him. By the time I elegantly shook off my hand, Jason's neck was already bruised with deep purple handprints, and his head and face were dripping with blood. Even the hands he used to shield himself were punctured with bloody holes. He looked as ghastly as a demon right now. His eyes were filled with the sheer terror of barely surviving, and the way he looked at me held a trace of horrified dread.
Oh my god, hurry! Hurry up and get the teacher! Something terrible happened!
Holy freaking crap! He's actually trying to end him! He's lost it! This guy is absolutely insane! Call the cops!
The classmates were in an uproar, panic and anxiety written all over their faces. A few of the rich kids scrambled forward to support Jason. Even though they often got into brawls, they had never seen such a lethal, merciless way of fighting. At this moment, everyone was just thanking their lucky stars that they weren't the ones who provoked him. Otherwise, they would probably be in an even worse state than Jason. I gave a faint smile, pulled out a handkerchief, and silently wiped the blood off my fingers and the ballpoint pen. My careless glance to the side terrified the onlookers so much that they all stumbled backward.
Call the cops! Call the cops right now!
Jason roared furiously while grimacing in pain.
I'm going to send his behind to jail!
You want to send a minor to prison over a few little scratches? I asked with a face full of utter sincerity. Your uncle seems to be at a critical stage for his promotion lately, right? If some Jones family scandal accidentally slipped out, do you think he'd die of a heart attack?
What?
Jason gritted his teeth in sheer rage, his fists clenching fiercely. At a crucial time like this, he really didn't dare to call the police. Families like the Jones family feared scandals the most. Whether it was brawling or anything else, as long as some ambiguous dirt got leaked, it would be more than enough to make Jason suffer the consequences. I shook my head with a sigh. Someone stirs the pot just a little and you obediently jump out to be their weapon. It's a real tragedy for the Jones family to have bred such a complete idiot like you. Just look at you getting yourself all banged up while he doesn't have a single scratch on him. Hearing this, Jason whipped his head around, only to see Arthur sitting comfortably in his seat, still wearing that same shocked, dumbfounded expression. Not a single ounce of worry for what happened to him. In fact, he even looked a little relieved. He's probably celebrating that it wasn't him who got hurt.
Huh? Brother Jason? I'm sorry.
Arthur frantically shook his head, trying to explain himself. His inner thoughts chimed in right on cue.
Wow. I told you guys long ago not to mess with my big brother. He's so ruthless. He absolutely terrified me just now.
Jason's expression softened slightly. Then he turned his head and spoke with a cold tone.
Save your breath trying to drive a wedge between us. Even if we don't call the cops for what you did to me today, our Jones family will absolutely not let this go. Just you wait.
I rubbed the ring on my left hand and replied lightly, "The pathetic little Jones family. Even if I force-fed you garbage, you'd still have to swallow it. If you've got a problem with that, tell the elders of your Jones family to come see me themselves." A wave of sharp gasps instantly echoed around the room. Ordinary folks might not understand what the Jones family represented, but the rich kids in the class knew perfectly well. The Jones family was the absolute last group their own elders would dare to offend. With just one word from them, various authorities would take turns making life a living hell for their family businesses. No matter how massive the corporation, being inspected and penalized day in and day out would drive anyone to the brink of collapse. That was exactly why Jason could strut around the school like he owned the place.
He must be out of his mind, right? How dare he provoke him so blatantly?
What? Did you think that after dealing with Jason, I forgot to deal with the rest of you? You guys were running your mouths just a second ago. Aren't you gonna stand up for your good buddy? Come on. Come on. Let's have a little chat before the teacher gets here. My chilling gaze swept right over them. The group of rich kids instantly stumbled backward in terror. Their faces flushed completely red, but for the longest time, they didn't dare make a single sound. I couldn't be bothered with these little nobodies anymore. I shoved them aside and marched straight toward Arthur. Arthur's face filled with sheer panic as he cried out,
Big brother! What? What are you trying to do?
His inner voice started screaming again in panic.
Big brother is definitely going to beat me to death. What do I do? Somebody please save me.
I looked at him with pure mockery. Stop making me sick by calling me Big Brother all the darn time. You're always secretly egging people on to mess with me both at home and at school. And the moment things go south, you think you can just hide in the background and play innocent? Did you really think the world works like that? Arthur choked back a sob as he tried to defend himself.
Big brother, I didn't.
I was absolutely done wasting my breath on him. I grabbed him by the hair and viciously slammed his head straight into the desk.
Help me.
Arthur shrieked in absolute agony as blood poured from his nose. The surrounding crowd was utterly horrified, their hearts pounding in their chests.
Stop right there.
A delicate but cold voice suddenly scolded.
Henry, you absolute violent maniac. Is this how Grandpa Winters raised you, attacking your own brother and bullying your classmates? You are an absolute disgrace to the Winters family.
Chloe, please save me.
Arthur pleaded pitifully, his face completely covered in blood. I just shot a freezing glare in her direction. Chloe, the heiress of the Sterling Group, was glaring daggers at me. We had grown up together, so we could barely be considered childhood sweethearts. There was even a time when I truly felt a sweet, heart-fluttering romance with her. The elders of our two families had even joked about getting us engaged. What an absolute pity that this woman turned out to be just as hopelessly blind and foolish as the rest of them. In my previous life, Arthur effortlessly won over my childhood friend's heart using his sweet talk, fake innocence, and sickening flattery. Chloe didn't just become another member of his harem, she even schemed against me herself. Every single time there was a conflict, she would always shield Arthur. Every time there was a misunderstanding, she refused to listen to a single word of my defense. Now that I've been reborn, Chloe is still as blindly protective as ever, but I no longer feel that familiar heartache. All I feel now is coldness and contempt. You tell me to stop and I'm just supposed to stop? Who the fuck do you think you are, bossing me around? I grabbed Arthur's hair once again and slammed his head viciously against the desk over and over again.
Stop it right now.
Chloe's face turned livid with anger. Clearly, she never expected me to completely disregard her like this. In a moment of sheer panic, completely ignoring the danger, she grabbed a paper knife from the desk and held it right against her own snow-white neck.
If you don't stop right now, I will kill myself right in front of you.
Chloe threatened, her face full of absolute resolve.
Holy crap. Chloe, don't do anything crazy.
Young Master Winters, just stop. Don't let someone die over this.
Oh my God! Quick, get a teacher!
The classmates gasped and screamed in uproar. A few of them even sprinted out of the classroom in an absolute panic. Meanwhile, I was just completely dumbfounded. Honestly, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Are you completely psychotic? You want to save him, so you're gonna cut yourself? Once upon a time, I truly treated Chloe like my own flesh and blood sister. If she even slightly burned her hand on a cup of milk tea, my heart would ache for her. But after enduring her endless betrayals in my past life, my heart has long turned completely to stone. Even if Chloe died right here, right now, right in front of me, I wouldn't even flinch. Watching this teenage girl act like a fearless martyr, I just found it utterly hilarious. The precious princess that the Sterling Group spent over 10 years carefully raising is actually a complete idiot. It really is pathetic. If you want to die, hurry up and do it. Save me the eyesore. I remarked coldly. My hands didn't stop for a second. I grabbed Arthur's head again and kept smashing it into the desk.
You? How dare you?
Chloe looked incredibly wronged and utterly in disbelief. The old Henry was never like this. In the past, if she did anything to hurt herself, he would be absolutely frantic. He would even agree to all her unreasonable demands. So why didn't he care anymore?
Stop. I told you to stop. If you don't stop right now, I will never speak to you again for the rest of my life. You jerk! Didn't you say you would never reject me?
Chloe stomped her feet in anxious fury. Just as she was caught in this horribly awkward standoff, unable to back down, the homeroom teacher, Miss Davis, finally arrived, panting heavily. This whole circus in senior year class 2 had already drawn in a huge crowd from the surrounding classes, with plenty of teachers and students watching outside. The homeroom teacher frantically pushed through the crowd and stormed into the classroom. The very next second, she let out an ear-piercing shriek.
You little brat. Are you out of your mind? Stop. Stop at this instant.
Oh, good morning, Miss Davis. I chuckled and let go of him, my face the very picture of pure innocence. But that exact expression infuriated Miss Davis even more. Looking at the bloody mess that Jason and Arthur were in, she couldn't help but scream and curse.
You darned little beast. How dare you be so ruthless to your own classmates? I'm calling the cops. I am calling the cops right now and sending you to juvie.
Saying that, she pulled out her phone ready to dial. This absolutely terrified Jason. He hurriedly interrupted her, shouting,
No, you can't! No cops! I've already called the family to come sort this out. Miss Davis, just calm down.
Hearing that, Miss Davis finally snapped back to reality. If police cars rolled onto campus and blew this up, the school's reputation would be completely ruined. And as the one who made the call, she'd definitely get punished too.
Hurry, get them to the infirmary, quick!
Miss Davis took a deep breath and frantically started giving orders.
You, and you. Move it. And you, Henry, call your parents right now.
Call my parents just so you can put on a show of bowing and scraping for them, Miss Davis? I asked with a mocking smirk. A wave of muffled laughter instantly rippled through the classroom. It was true. With an ordinary student, there was no way Miss Davis could treat him like the others and chew out his parents. If anything, she'd have to grovel and fake a smile like a total servant. Realizing this, Miss Davis looked utterly aggrieved. She spun around and hurried off to call the school board.
This isn't over. Even if I can't throw you in juvie, I'll make sure you're kicked out of St. Ray High.
Jason spat coldly before heading to the infirmary.
You're gonna pay for this. Just you wait.
Hearing this, I scoffed and warned him, with just your Jones family, I'm afraid that's not going to be enough. Maybe you should call for backup.
I've already told Uncle and Auntie Winters. My dad is coming too.
Chloe sneered through gritted teeth, piling on the pressure.
Keep talking tough. Let's see how your parents deal with you when they get here.
Sure, I replied, still perfectly calm and collected. I had the elegant, dangerous vibe of a mobster in a suit, a look that left plenty of the girls staring in awe. In under 5 minutes, the massive drama in Senior Class 2 had spread across the entire school. Videos and photos were flying everywhere on the school forum. The whole school was shocked and buzzing with gossip. People were guessing if Henry had gone completely psycho. Some were dead set that he was definitely ending up behind bars this time, sewing prison uniforms for sure. As the storm brewed, a betting pool quickly popped up on the forum, taking odds on whether Henry would be expelled or locked up. Students voted so frantically that the sheer traffic actually crashed the school servers. Around noon, Jason's third uncle, Mark Jones, Chloe's father, Charles Sterling, and Mrs. Winters, Diana, all rushed over in a panic. The moment they reached the principal's office, they saw 4 burly bodyguards standing watch at the door. Stepping inside, their blood pressure nearly blew through the roof. Jason and Arthur's heads and hands were wrapped up like mummies with blood still soaking through the gauze. They looked absolutely terrifying. Even Chloe had bandages wrapped around her neck. Principal Lawson and the school board were standing awkwardly to the side while I was sitting arrogantly at the head of the tea table, casually brewing tea for myself with 2 bodyguards stationed right behind me.
Jason, what on earth happened here?
My sweet little princess. Oh my God, how did your neck get hurt?
The 3 of them frantically rushed forward to check the damage. Diana was so distressed, she was practically in tears.
Arthur, sweetheart, are you okay? Good heavens, who beat you up like this? Which little brat did this?
But the moment she turned and saw me, she instantly realized her question was completely unnecessary. A blind rage exploded inside her.
You little monster, how dare you touch my son? I'll freaking destroy you.
Saying that, she grabbed the ashtray on the desk, ready to smash it at me. But I just calmly raised my eyes. My gaze was as cold as a knife. Mrs. Winters, you better think carefully before you throw that. I took a leisurely sip of my tea. I've always believed in an eye for an eye. Even Chairman Winters got his face smashed in yesterday. You don't actually think you're special, do you?
You little brat, I am your mother,
Diana said, her fingers trembling violently.
Are you going to hit me too?
Just a biological one. We cut ties the moment I turned 18. I raised an eyebrow and shot back. Has Mrs. Winters forgotten that the one sitting next to you is your real precious son? Diana almost fainted from rage at my words. She pointed at me, stuttering,
You.
for a good while, unable to speak. But in the end, she didn't dare throw the ashtray. After all, she knew I'd actually hit back.
Take your family drama home and deal with it there.
Mark Jones sat down, his face full of stern authority.
Right now, I only want to know one thing. Why exactly was my nephew Jason beat into such a pulp? Don't you all owe me an explanation?
As he spoke, he slammed the table furiously and roared, his intimidating gaze locked straight onto me. Charles Sterling, his face equally filled with rage, chimed in.
Henry, you and Chloe grew up together. Have you lost your darn mind hurting her like that?
Under the intense pressure from all 3 powerful families, the school's top management was sweating bullets. Principal Lawson and the others were drenched in cold sweat.
Mr. Jones, Mrs. Winters, Chairman Sterling, the entire incident was captured by the classroom security cameras. The 3 students' injuries have also been stabilized. How about we watch the footage first and then decide how to handle this?
Principal Lawson suggested carefully. Hearing this, Mark Jones and Charles Sterling couldn't really argue. They could only nod in agreement. Seeing this, Principal Lawson hurriedly turned on the projector. He projected the prepped security footage onto the wall. Since this involved the Jones, Sterling, and Winters families, all of whom were heavyweights you didn't want to cross, the footage was completely raw and unedited. From the moment Henry walked into the classroom, right up to Arthur maliciously provoking Jason into throwing the first punch, the entire truth of the incident played out perfectly in front of everyone. Mark Jones and Charles Sterling were no fools. The moment the video ended, a profound look of embarrassment washed over their faces. One couldn't believe his own nephew was so unbelievably stupid, acting as someone else's weapon while feeling completely smug about it. The other couldn't fathom that his daughter was even dumber, actually holding a knife to her own throat. Both men were cunning old foxes. They saw right through it instantly. This whole mess was orchestrated by the Winters family's adopted son. But Diana remained as willfully blind as ever. Even after watching the footage, not only did she think Arthur did nothing wrong, she actually felt terribly heartbroken that he was beaten so badly. She was trembling all over with pure rage. She glared at me with absolute hatred.
How on earth did I give birth to a little monster like you? Hurting your own brother, threatening your classmates, you are utter scum, a complete disgrace. Principal, I, Diana, will absolutely not cover for him. This piece of trash must be expelled right now, immediately.
Diana spat out every single word with venom. Everyone in the room couldn't help but gasp in shock. They had heard the Winters family was dysfunctional, but they never expected it to be this insane, ruthlessly cursing out her biological son in public just to avenge her adopted one. Even a brain-dead lunatic wouldn't pull something like this.
Well, since Mrs. Winters has made her stance clear, I won't add much more.
Mark Jones said with a cold sneer.
It was wrong of my nephew Jason to provoke him first. Sure, but he still had no right to beat my nephew into that state. As long as Henry is expelled, I can let this matter go.
Hearing this, Charles Sterling nodded in agreement.
Exactly. He caused such a massive scene this time. If he isn't severely punished, he'll never learn his lesson.
With all three heavyweights pressuring him, Principal Lawson finally breathed a sigh of relief and immediately prepared to announce his decision. I raised my hand to cut him off. Since you three elders have made your stance clear, allow me to be bold and say a few words myself as the junior. Hope you don't mind.
What is it you want to say, nephew?
Charles Sterling asked, frowning. I want to say, are you completely freaking blind, you old geezer? I smashed my teacup onto the floor with a loud crash. Pointing right at him, I let loose. You saw the footage yourself. Did this have a single darn thing to do with your daughter from start to finish? She just jumped in to poke her nose where it doesn't belong, holding a knife to her own neck. What is this? A freaking soap opera? If she actually ended up offing herself, who's taking the blame? Your daughter is completely brainless. Hurry up and take her to the psych ward to get her head checked. What does any of this have to do with you to be barking at me like this? And you want me to pay the price, you ungrateful piece of work? If my grandpa hadn't lifted you out of the gutter back in the day, you'd still be a dirty nobody hauling cement bags at a construction site. You sit as Chairman Sterling for a few years and completely forget where you came from. In front of everyone, Charles Sterling's face turned violently red. His chest heaved with rage, and he hid his trembling clenched fists behind his back. He looked like he was going to explode several times, but he somehow managed to swallow it all down.
You're right. If Old Master hadn't pulled me up, I never would have made anything of myself. That is a debt I will never forget,
Charles Sterling said coldly.
However, for you to hurl insults so publicly, don't you think you are crossing the line with an elder?
Hey, you didn't honestly think that just because my grandpa passed away, all your dirty little secrets died with him, did you? I raised an eyebrow, my voice deadpan. I have all the blackmail on you sitting right in the palm of my hand. The fact that I haven't thrown you behind bars is already me being generous, and you still have the guts to mess with me. Hearing this, cold sweat began pouring down Charles Sterling's forehead.
Dad, say something.
Chloe demanded, clearly upset.
Henry, what is your problem? Show my dad some respect, or I'll make sure you pay for this.
Shut your mouth!
Charles Sterling barked coldly. He then picked up his teacup and downed it in one gulp.
You have every right to curse at me, nephew. I was out of line today. I hope you can forgive me. Our Sterling group won't get involved in today's mess.
Why on earth not, Dad?
Chloe stamped her feet in a tantrum.
Look at what he did to little Arthur. Even if you don't want to help, why are you apologizing to him?
I said, shut up!
Charles Sterling whipped his head around, glaring at her like a rabid wolf. The murderous look drained the color straight from Chloe's face.
I'm sorry. My daughter really is completely brainless. I apologize on her behalf.
Charles Sterling sighed, forcing a bitter smile. I pinched the bridge of my nose, utterly impatient. For the sake of the old ties between our families, I'll let this slide. But if there's a next time, you know exactly what will happen.
Thank you, nephew.
Charles Sterling clasped his hands in a gesture of thanks. He was a smart man, after all. Being able to swallow his pride after being utterly humiliated by a kid wasn't because he valued loyalty. No, it was because he knew full well that Henry held the exact leverage needed to bring the entire Sterling group to its knees. As a businessman, there was no way he'd make a dangerous enemy over some petty kid's squabble. Old Master Winters might be gone, but the people who owed him favors were still very much alive. For a moment, a deeply uncomfortable silence fell over the office. Everyone in the room stood frozen in absolute disbelief. How the heck did things turn out like this?
Chairman Sterling might be backing out of this, but our Jones family absolutely won't let this slide.
Mark Jones coldly picked up his teacup, narrowed his eyes, and warned,
How exactly do we settle the score for you hurting my nephew?
Chalk it up to your own bad luck. Chalk it up to your own fault for being blind. Chalk it up to the Jones family being too stupid, practically begging to be used as someone else's weapon. Consider it a massive favor that I'm helping you discipline your kids. I enunciated every single word forcefully. How about that? Is Third Uncle Jones satisfied with that answer? Mark Jones was so furious, he nearly had a heart attack. The others in the room gasped once again. Good Lord, he just insulted Chairman Sterling of the Sterling Group, and now he was going after the Jones family. Talk about a reckless kid with absolutely no fear. How dare he offend the all-powerful Jones family? When had the Jones family ever been cursed out like this? Plus, their second son was up for another promotion soon. Right now, even the Winters group wouldn't dare mess with the Jones family. How did an out-of-favor brat have the guts to do this? He was completely dead meat now. The crowd muttered to themselves, casting hidden glances of pity my way. Arthur was completely ecstatic, just waiting to watch me make a fool of myself, but I just let out a dismissive scoff. Do you know why I completely wrecked Jason but didn't lay a single finger on Chloe? Why? Mark Jones frowned. Because the way I see it, the Jones family is a whole lot easier to crush than the Sterling group. I leaned forward, flashing a cold, highly oppressive smirk. I just love picking off the weak links. Do you understand? The crowd took in another sharp breath. They stared at me like I was an absolute lunatic. The Jones family was a massive titan in Granville City. Multiple family members held high-ranking positions with deeply entrenched connections everywhere. In any industry, they had the power to make or break you. If they really went all out, even the Winters group wouldn't stand a chance.
You give me far too much credit.
Charles Sterling chimed in with a bitter smile.
Our group is nowhere near as formidable as the Jones family.
I casually toyed with my teacup. Taking down a corporate empire might require burning through cash and resources, finding a weak spot before you can finally strike. But taking down an entity like the Jones family, all you need is hard evidence of their crimes. I smirked at the old fox. Over the years, the Jones family has looked untouchable like a roaring fire, but behind closed doors you're rotting with dirty secrets. Finding a fatal flaw wouldn't be hard at all. The moment the Jones family shows even the slightest sign of weakness, your rivals will instantly jump at the chance to kick you while you're down. At least the Sterling group actually earned their fortune legally. But you? Do you even dare to spend your money in the light of day? I pressed him step by step, my words absolute and piercing. My eyes were as sharp as daggers, radiating such intense pressure that no one dared to meet my gaze. Mark Jones's face slowly contorted into an ugly scowl. He curled his lips into a sarcastic sneer.
My entire Jones family strictly abides by the law. We haven't been involved in a single shady deal. Do you really think any random nobody off the street can just threaten us?
Is that so? I let out a mocking chuckle. Do you seriously think everyone in your big happy family has your back? You're just a bunch of rats terrified to even flaunt your own money. Did you think digging up dirt on you would be hard? Do you have any idea how many eyes are watching your every move?
What exactly are you getting at?
Mark Jones gritted his teeth. I ignored his question, casually continuing my thought. Your second brother's been running around lately trying to secure a promotion, hasn't he? It's a darn shame, really. The higher-ups filled that position a long time ago, and you guys haven't even caught wind of it yet. How pathetic. Hearing that, Mark Jones leapt to his feet in terror. His face was an absolute picture of shock, pure disbelief, and sheer panic. This was the first time Jason had ever seen his third uncle lose his cool like this. He blurted out in alarm,
"Third uncle, what's wrong with the—"
But before he finished the question,
"Shut up."
Mark Jones snapped, his face pale and shifting nervously. He sank back into his seat, gulping down several mouthfuls of tea before squinting at me. Usually, the credibility of some cocky kid saying things like this would be absolutely zero. But this guy was personally trained by Old Master Winters himself. He absolutely could not be underestimated. An inspection team from the top is coming down in a few days, I continued, a mocking smirk playing on my lips. When that new boss takes charge and wants to make a massive statement, care to guess if your Jones family will be the sacrificial lamb they slaughter to warn the others?
Nonsense.
Mark Jones stubbornly spat back, refusing to show weakness, but his left hand was trembling so badly he could barely grip his teacup. Hot tea sloshed over the rim, splashing all over the floor. The onlookers stared, absolutely stunned. Just how much did Henry know? How could a few simple words terrify Mark Jones this badly? It was just a stupid fight between high schoolers. How did this turn into something more intense than a mob boss negotiation? Mark Jones finally couldn't sit still. He ducked his head, pulling out his phone to fire off a few urgent texts. When he read the replies flashing on his screen, tension, raw panic, and deep unease flashed across his face. He forced a stiff, unnatural smile and finally said,
"I'm so sorry, my boy. My Jones family is completely in the wrong today. Please don't take it to heart. Your uncle here sincerely apologizes."
I just raised my teacup with a faint chuckle. Only then did Mark Jones let out a silent sigh of relief. Then he spun around and slapped Jason hard on the back of the head.
You idiot,
he barked.
Hurry up and apologize to your brother Winters. You let someone rile you up with a few words and you practically beg to be their pawn. How can you be so darn useless?
Third uncle,
Jason stammered, his face burning bright red with deep humiliation.
Nothing.
Mark Jones snapped furiously.
Apologize right now. You two have been brothers since childhood. You absolutely cannot let this ruin your bond.
I'm sorry.
Jason gritted his teeth, bowing his head in apology, but his eyes were still burning with fierce, bitter resentment. I couldn't care less about his attitude. The Jones family's golden days were officially over. I raised an eyebrow, glancing over Jason and the other, thoroughly enjoying the spectacular mix of emotions on their faces. Finally, just as I hoped, my eyes locked onto Arthur's venomous glare. Once upon a time, all he had to do was play the victim, use his little inner voice to frame me, and my family and friends would abandon and curse me to hell. I'd be dragged into endless misery and self-doubt. But now, I had been completely reborn. Every single move I made carried the crushing authority of someone at the very top. Laughing, throwing threats, and breaking down powerful men to their faces. How could they not be terrified of an enemy like that?
Big Brother is so terrifying.
Just as expected, Arthur's pathetic inner voice echoed right into Diana's ears.
Even the two uncles can't keep him in check. Mom definitely won't be able to control him either. How am I supposed to survive at school now? I really don't want to get beaten up every single day. It hurts so much. I'm going to be beaten to death sooner or later.
Arthur's inner monologue of playing the miserable victim once again easily stirred up Diana's pity and indignation as always. She glared at me with fierce eyes and said coldly,
Fine. I didn't realize you had such a sharp tongue, but this is far from over today. Chairman Sterling and the Jones family might let it slide, but I certainly won't. You little brat are dropping out of school today. If we let you stay in this school, who knows how you'll terrorize your classmates next? Arthur is so innocent and kind-hearted. How is he supposed to endure your bullying and beatings? Principal Lawson, the century-old sterling reputation of St. Ray High School cannot be tarnished by this kind of scum. Expel him right this instant.
The school executives instantly broke out in cold sweats. Henry was no ordinary high school student. The guy came to school with 6 bodyguards in tow. He literally pointed right at the noses of Mark Jones and Charles Sterling, cursed them out, and still walked away totally fine. How could they possibly dare to expel someone like him? Principal Lawson put on an apologetic smile, rubbing his hands together as he cautiously suggested,
How about you folks head home and discuss this among yourselves?
Diana glared at him furiously.
There is nothing to discuss. This is a severe violation of school rules. Just follow your standard procedures. You don't need to worry about offending anyone.
Principal Lawson maintained his awkward smile, still trying to play the peacemaker.
Perhaps you should all take some more time to think it over.
Cut the crap.
Diana shrieked with an uncompromising attitude.
Expel him. He must be expelled right now. Otherwise, I'll take this straight to your board of directors and file a complaint.
Principal Lawson hesitated for a moment before offering a polite reminder.
Mrs. Winters, even with a complaint, we can't just expel a student arbitrarily. However, since you are the legal guardian of both boys, you do have the right to transfer, withdraw, or suspend either one of them.
Hearing this, Diana's eyes instantly lit up. The raging fire in her heart instantly transformed into a look of absolute triumph.
Then we'll transfer Henry. As his legal guardian, I'm transferring him to 13th High.
13th High?
The crowd exchanged complicated looks. Diana was truly ruthless. To punish her own biological son, she was actually willing to throw him into the city's most notorious bottom-tier high school, a place where even the children of migrant workers refused to go. In an instant, the crowd's gazes toward Henry were once again filled with hidden pity.
Hey, he's just a little kid after all. With her authority as his legal guardian, dealing with him is a piece of cake. It's quite a shame for someone with his potential, though. He only has his terrible parents to blame.
When the crowd continued to murmur among themselves, a slow smirk crept up the corners of Arthur's mouth.
So what if you're a tough guy? With just a little provocation from my inner thoughts, you have no choice but to obediently take the most vicious backstabbing from your own flesh and blood.
As long as word got out that Henry was being exiled to 13th High, not only would he get to vent his frustrations today, but from now on, whenever the elite circles of Granville City talked about him, they would contemptuously associate his name with 13th High.
You can't do this, Mom. You'll ruin my big brother if you do this.
Arthur cried out, putting on a fake display of pleading for mercy.
His grades are so amazing. Making him go to a place like 13th High is just humiliating him.
Mom Diana's face flooded with heartache.
Oh, Arthur, you are simply far too kind-hearted for your own good. But stay out of it this time. I have to stand up for you today. Our Winters family doesn't need such an unruly, disobedient little brat.
You can't, Mom.
Arthur continued his theatrical performance.
Sob, I'm perfectly fine. It doesn't hurt at all. Please, whatever you do, don't make things difficult for my brother, just because of me. My conscience would never be able to bear it.
You silly child.
Diana was profoundly moved once again, while Chloe stood by with a face full of righteous indignation. Only Charles Sterling and Mark Jones looked totally weirded out. The look in their eyes was pure disgust, like they had just swallowed a dead fly. "Who the heck are you mourning for?" I yelled, snatching up a teacup and hurling it straight at them. That instantly put an end to their little theatrical sobbing.
How dare you?
Diana spun around fiercely, shielding Arthur like a mother bear.
You are going to process your transfer papers right this instant. You have to pay the price for what you did to Arthur.
Hey, I rubbed the ring on my left hand, a mocking smile on my face. What a pity. Today, I am absolutely not transferring and I won't be paying a single dime. In fact, I'm gonna make Arthur go down to the school broadcasting room and give a public apology to the whole school. Don't believe me?
What kind of psycho nonsense are you spouting?
Diana let out a harsh, bitter laugh. The rest of the room looked at me like I had lost my mind. You're the one who started the fight, and even your own guardian can't stand you. Do you really think a little brat like you can make any waves here? Principal Lawson, you heard my demands, right? I locked eyes with him, my gaze piercing, and casually tossed out the order. Make it happen, now. Principal Lawson looked completely dumbfounded.
Make what happen? Look here, Henry. The school has its rules.
Principal Lawson put on his best bureaucratic tone, but was clearly annoyed.
You should be thanking your lucky stars they aren't pressing charges for your violent behavior. How could you make such outrageous demands?
Oh, you'll agree. I smiled with absolute confidence. I reached out and dipped my finger into the spilled tea and slowly, deliberately traced 7 numbers onto the table. 3003045.
Why, you?
Principal Lawson's face turned completely white. His legs practically gave out from under him, nearly collapsing right there. At this point, even the biggest idiot in the room could tell something was seriously wrong. That string of numbers Henry wrote down definitely meant something. And whatever it was enough to completely blackmail the principal. Otherwise, there was no way he would react like that. So I asked calmly, "Can it be done?" I looked at him coolly.
Why, yes, absolutely.
Principal Lawson frantically wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, nodding his head like his life depended on it. His utter panic eventually hardened into desperate resolve. He whipped his head around to face Diana.
Mrs. Winters, unless the student himself consents, the school has no right to force a transfer. Furthermore, Arthur deliberately provoked his classmates and started a massive incident. That is a severe violation of our school's code of conduct. He will be facing immediate disciplinary action.
What?
Diana absolutely blew her top. The rest of the room stared in stunned disbelief. What? What the heck is going on? Just what on earth did those numbers mean? For Principal Lawson to risk ticking off a massive Winters group just to firmly take Henry's side, Arthur's face twisted in pure denial.
No way! How is this even possible?
Chloe and Jason were seething, absolutely furious and humiliated. Only Mark Jones and Charles Sterling, 2 shrewd old foxes, narrowed their eyes. their gazes darkening instantly.
Principal Lawson, have you lost your darn mind?
Diana shrieked at the top of her lungs.
Do you have any idea what happens to people who cross the Winters group? I am ordering you to take that back right this instant. Otherwise, you know exactly what will happen to you.
Diana went completely ballistic, and Principal Lawson instantly felt a crushing wave of pressure. After all, Diana represented the Winters Group. This was the #1 corporate empire in all of Granville City, a massive conglomerate that had its claws in absolutely everything. Their influence was no joke. An elite private high school like this existed purely to serve the ultra-rich. If they ticked off the wealthiest family in the city, the school's entire board of directors would be in deep, deep trouble.
Are you crazy, Principal? Can't you see Mrs. Winters is furious? Yeah, Principal. If we cross the Winters family, the board will have our heads. One word from them, and we're all out on the street. Please don't do anything crazy,
the school executives whispered, trying to talk him down. Principal Lawson's back was completely soaked in cold sweat, his eyes pleading with me for help. Too bad I wasn't going to change my mind. Principal Lawson had to deal with Arthur today. Otherwise, not just him, but this entire school would be utterly ruined. Having lived through a past life, I knew way too many secrets. All the big shots in Granville City, I had dirt on every single one of them. Some of it I'd heard about in my past life, and some I'd stumbled upon while wandering as a spirit. The numbers I just written down were no joke. If Principal Lawson wanted to see the school's reputation dragged through the mud, I wouldn't mind lending a hand. Make your choice. I tapped my fingers casually against the tea table, my gaze sweeping over them dismissively. If you can't make up your mind, you can always report to the school board.
Yes, of course. Please wait just a moment.
Principal Lawson looked like a massive weight had been lifted off his chest as he hurried out of the office to make a call. For a moment, everyone just found the situation absurd. St. Ray International was an elite nationwide high school with branch campuses all over the country. The shareholders on its board were absolute titans across various industries. Bothering them for a trivial matter like this, that was just totally ridiculous.
Don't think you can just bluff your way out of this,
Diana scoffed, refusing to back down.
Even the major shareholders behind St. Ray High have to show the Winters Group some respect. Who do you think you are?
They aren't showing respect to the Winters Group. They're showing respect to the late old man, I sneered impatiently. You're just an outsider with a different surname. What gives you the right to throw the Winters family's name around? Who the heck do you think you are?
You little brat.
Diana was practically foaming at the mouth with rage. Arthur tried to chime in with his manipulative victim act again, but one sharp glare from me, and he knew better than to open his mouth. He was terrified I'd smash him a few more times. By now, it was obvious to everyone in the room. Henry was ruthless, the type to let his fists do the talking instead of running his mouth. He just sat there in absolute silence, sipping his tea, radiating an intimidating aristocratic aura that was even more terrifying than a corporate shark like Charles Sterling. A moment later, Principal Lawson returned, but the sheer panic and terror were completely gone from his face. All that remained was a cold, strictly business expression.
Mrs. Winters, after careful consideration, the school has reached a decision. Arthur will be issued a major demerit, and he is required to make a public apology to Henry over the school's PA system. Failure to comply will result in immediate expulsion.
What did you just say?
Diana completely lost her mind, her elegant pampered face twisted in pure absolute disbelief. The rest of the crowd was totally dumbfounded. What on earth was happening? Arthur's face burned with shock and humiliation. Just a minute ago, he was fantasizing about ruthlessly mocking and humiliating Henry, but now he was the one looking like an absolute clown. And the craziest part was, he was the one who got beaten up.
Henry beats me up and gets away with it. But I have to apologize to him? If I bow down to this, I'll be a laughingstock for the rest of my life.
Panicking, he immediately started projecting his thoughts, playing the miserable victim and successfully tugging at Diana's heartstrings. She grabbed Arthur's shoulders, comforting him.
Don't be afraid, Arthur. Mom is going to protect you.
Thank you, Mom.
Arthur put on a tearful show of gratitude, internally keeping up his pathetic, fawning act. Diana took a deep breath, her voice turning ice cold.
Principal Lawson, you know exactly what happens to people who cross the Winters group. This outcome is completely unacceptable.
Principal Lawson looked utterly helpless.
This decision came directly from the head chairman himself. Since the incident took place on campus, the school has the final say on how it's handled.
Diana's face flushed with indignation and despair. She pointed a trembling finger right at Principal Lawson, her whole body shaking. But this time, the boss behind them doesn't give a darn about the Winters family's reputation. Even if George showed up in person, it wouldn't make a difference. Unless Henry changes his mind. Exactly. The key to this whole mess still lies with Henry. Panic just makes you lose your head. At that thought, she lunged forward, grabbed my arm, and screamed,
You ungrateful brat. Tell Principal Lawson right now that we're settling this. You can't let Arthur get suspended. Do you hear me?
In her frenzy, Diana's nails dug into my skin so hard I nearly bled. Annoyed, I flung my arm out. A massive force sent Diana flying backward. If Arthur and Chloe hadn't been right there to catch her, she would have definitely cracked her head open.
Are you even human, man?
Arthur immediately yelled in accusation.
You can hit me all you want, but how could you strike your own mother?
Chloe was also furious.
You actually hit your own mother. Calling you a monster is an insult to the word.
I couldn't be bothered with these idiots. Sweeping a cold, indifferent glance over them, I just turned to leave. As I walked past Principal Lawson, I casually dropped the line. I haven't seen a thing. Just make sure Arthur's apology letter is a deep one. Principal Lawson nodded eagerly with a fawning smile.
Of course, of course. Please rest assured, Mr. Winters. Our school will absolutely not cover for anyone.
Satisfied, I gave a nod and walked right out of the office, leaving everyone staring at each other with complicated expressions.
The Winters family really birthed a true dragon.
Mark Jones couldn't help but marvel with a sigh.
Too bad some people are blind enough to mistake trash for treasure. Absolutely ridiculous.
Feeling the strange stares from everyone around her, Diana felt a crushing wave of humiliation. At the same time, a quiet thought crept into her mind. Was she actually wrong? That very afternoon, St. Ray International High School swiftly issued a formal warning and demerit. Arthur was disciplined for provoking a fight. He was also forced to read a 30,000-word apology letter live over the school's broadcasting system. And with that, this entire campus drama finally came to a close. But the outcome sent massive shockwaves both on and off campus. Not only were the students and teachers completely dumbfounded, but even the wealthy kids across Granville City were stunned. Word spread like wildfire. Before long, the news was on the verge of blowing up all over the internet. Even though the Winters group scrambled to suppress the trending topics, their reputation had already been dragged through the mud. When the rest of the Winters family heard about it, they absolutely blew their tops. Arthur himself was thoroughly humiliated. Unable to handle the judging stares from the entire school, he took a leave of absence and went home. Jason and Chloe also caught a brutal scolding from their families. Already fuming, the two of them just packed up and went home too. As for those rich kids who usually sucked up to Arthur, they were so terrified that they all started skipping class. In the blink of an eye, the Senior 3 Class 2 classroom was more than half empty. But I couldn't care less about any of that. I just sat quietly at my desk, burying myself in my textbooks. This cheap soap opera drama is not worthy my time. After that, I started to plan everything to destroy this fucked up family. To truly appreciate the collapse of a grand estate, you have to watch the foundation crumble brick by brick. While my ultimate departure and their final ruin on my 18th birthday was the grand finale, the true torture for the Winters family, Arthur and their little sycophants, needed to start long before that. Only then would I feel relieved. My plan started the very day I came back home after the soap opera drama at school. I literally stopped meeting Arthur and my entire family. I keep my focus on my studies and the plan to make me the richest guy in the country. Thank God, because Uncle Grant and his bodyguard always protected me. Nobody could come to the second floor and mess with me. But that is the start of Arthur's downfall. A parasite needs a host to survive. Arthur's cheat system was no different. His entire innocent victim persona relied entirely on having a cruel, oppressive villain to contrast against. So, what happens when the villain simply stops playing the game? He couldn't do anything to gain sympathy. When I arrived at St. Ray High that Monday, my security detail had been refined to military perfection, 12 bodyguards in total. The two female operatives, dressed in sharp, unassuming blazers, sat at the desks immediately adjacent to mine in the classroom. If I walked to the cafeteria, a perimeter was formed. If I went to the library, the aisles were secured. I became physically and socially untouchable. Jason was the first to crack. Terrified of the impending government inspection I had casually predicted, which was already starting to make headlines in the financial sections, he desperately tried to approach me after morning prep.
Henry, look, man.
Jason started, holding 2 cans of imported coffee, wearing a strained, apologetic smile.
My uncle wanted me to see if we could just sit down and talk.
He didn't even make it within 6 feet of me. 2 towering men in black suits seamlessly stepped into his path, crossing their arms. They didn't speak. They didn't shove him. They just formed an impenetrable wall of muscle and tailored fabric. I was sitting right there, reading an advanced macroeconomics textbook. I didn't look up. I didn't flinch. I didn't even acknowledge his existence.
Henry, come on. We've known each other since we were in diapers.
Jason pleaded, his voice cracking with the humiliating realization that he was being ignored like a stray dog.
Just 5 minutes.
I slowly turned the page. The silence was deafening. Eventually, under the icy stares of my guards and the whispering of our classmates, Jason slinked away, his face burning red with shame. Chloe tried next. A few days later, she stood by the cafeteria entrance, clutching a bento box she had supposedly made herself. Her eyes were red-rimmed, playing the role of the heartbroken childhood sweetheart. It wasn't hard to guess why she was suddenly putting on this pathetic act. After the absolute humiliation in the principal's office, her father, Charles Sterling, had clearly panicked. He was a shrewd old fox, and he knew my threats about exposing his dirty secrets weren't just empty bluffs. Terrified that I would actually pull the trigger and destroy the Sterling group, he must have dragged his precious daughter aside and forced her to swallow her arrogant pride. He ordered her to play the sweet, innocent friend, to butter me up and get back in my good graces just to secure their family's safety.
Henry, please. I just want my Henry back.
She called out, her voice trembling beautifully. One of my female operatives simply raised a hand, blocking her path.
Step back, please.
I don't care about this bitch. I walked right past Chloe, my eyes fixed on the tablet in my hand, reviewing Uncle Grant's latest stock acquisitions. I didn't break stride. I didn't spare her a single fraction of a millimeter of a glance. I treated her as less than air. I heard her drop the bento box behind me, bursting into theatrical sobs, but nobody came to comfort her. People were starting to realize that associating with the people I hated was social suicide. With my ironclad boundaries enforced, the oxygen was sucked right out of Arthur's lungs. Cut off from me, his system began to starve. He could no longer broadcast inner thoughts about how I was bullying him, hitting him, or stealing from him, because the entire school could see with their own 2 eyes that I didn't even acknowledge his existence. I was in a completely different stratosphere. Desperate for the drug of public sympathy, Arthur started directing his manipulative inner broadcasts at anyone and anything. But without a high-status villain to make his struggles seem tragic, he just looked pathetic. It started with minor inconveniences. During a rainy day, he tripped and splashed mud on his uniform.
Why does the world always punish me? I'm already so fragile. Mom and Dad are stressed, and now even the rain hates me. Boo-hoo.
His inner voice echoed through the classroom. In the past, when framed against my abuse, this would have made people rush to coddle him. Now, a few classmates exchanged weird looks.
Did he seriously just say boo-hoo in his head?
Someone whispered.
It's just a puddle, bro. Grow up.
The true breaking point of his illusion, however, was his utter incompetence. Without me there to sabotage or to take the blame for his failures, the raw, unfiltered reality of Arthur Winters was exposed to the world. He was incredibly, painfully stupid. During the AP Physics midterms, Arthur scored a dismal 32%. A week later, he completely botched a major group presentation, freezing on stage and dropping his flashcards. Desperate, his system fired up.
I tried so hard. I stayed up all night. Why am I so stupid? If only I had a big brother to tutor me, but he hates me. I'm just a useless orphan. Wah.
He expected a wave of comfort. He expected the teacher to give him an extension, and his group members to tell him it was okay. Instead, the classroom fell into a heavy, irritated silence. The class president, a girl who had previously defended him, slammed her pen down.
Arthur, are you kidding me?
You dragged our entire group grade down. And if you know you're stupid, maybe actually open a book instead of crying into our brains every 5 minutes. We all have our own problems. We don't need your inner monologue giving us a headache.
The room erupted in agreements. The charm had completely worn off. The pitiful victim had devolved into a toxic, complaining, incompetent burden. Whenever his inner voice started up, people would literally put on noise-canceling headphones. He had become the school's biggest nuisance. One of my plans was complete. I had starved Arthur of my attention, and without it, he became a stupid joke. To destroy a towering, rotten tree, you don't just hack blindly at the trunk, you systematically sever its roots, starving it of nutrients until it collapses under its own weight. For Arthur and his pathetic illusion of superiority, his roots were the enablers who blindly backed him. Also, the Jones family and the Sterling Group. They thought their wealth and connections made them untouchable. They thought a teenager's warnings were just arrogant bluffs. They were dead wrong. My foresight wasn't a bluff. It was a guillotine waiting to drop. The Jones family was the first to face the blade. I had warned Mark Jones in the principal's office that the government inspection team was coming, looking for a sacrificial lamb to establish their authority. A smart family would have immediately gone to ground, severing questionable ties and keeping their heads down. But arrogance is a terminal disease, and Jason Jones was its most infected carrier. Unable to handle his sudden plunge into social irrelevance at school and fuming from the sheer humiliation I had handed him, Jason sought validation the only way he knew how: violence and intimidation. Just 2 weeks after the incident in the principal's office, Jason got into a massive drunken brawl at a high-end underground nightclub owned by one of his uncle's associates. He cracked a bottle over the head of a rival rich kid, shouting about how the Jones family ran Granville City. It was the exact pretext the inspection team needed. They didn't just arrest Jason for assault, they used the nightclub incident to secure a warrant. They pulled at that single bloody thread and the entire sweater unraveled. The nightclub's ledgers revealed money laundering. The money laundering traced back to Mark Jones's shell companies. Those shell companies led directly to the very officials who were trying to secure his brother's promotion. The collapse was sudden, violent, and absolute. On a quiet Tuesday morning, a fleet of police cars and government vehicles raided the Jones family compound. News helicopters circled overhead as Mark Jones was led out in handcuffs, his face pale and completely devoid of his former arrogance. Their assets were frozen immediately. An hour later, St. Ray High's administration scrambled to distance themselves. Jason was pulled right out of his homeroom class by 2 stern-faced police officers. As he was being escorted down the main corridor, his wrists in cuffs, he looked like a terrified, broken child. I happened to be walking out of the library, flanked by my bodyguards. Jason's eyes locked onto mine. His bravado was entirely gone, replaced by a suffocating, soul-crushing terror. He finally realized that the arrogant kid he had tried to step on was the one who had orchestrated his family's total annihilation with a few casual words. I didn't smile, I didn't gloat, I just looked through him as if he were a speck of dust and kept walking. Jason dropped his head, sobbing openly as he was shoved into the back of a squad car, expelled in utter disgrace. With the Jones family eradicated, Charles Sterling should have taken the hint. But greed makes fools out of supposed geniuses. In the principal's office, I had openly mentioned that a corporate empire could be taken down by finding a fatal flaw. I had also quietly instructed Uncle Grant to prepare for the sudden death of the Titan Group's CEO, knowing the stock would violently crash. Charles Sterling, relying on his own network of spies, caught wind that Uncle Grant was moving massive amounts of capital. But Charles miscalculated terribly. He thought Uncle Grant was gearing up for a hostile takeover of Titan Group. Wanting to outsmart me, outmaneuver the Winters, and secure his own dominance, Charles aggressively liquidated assets and took out massive high-interest loans to heavily invest in Titan Group, buying up shares to ride what he thought would be a historic surge. He went all in. 3 days later, just as I had predicted, the head of Titan Pharmaceuticals died in a horrific, fiery car crash on the coastal highway. The market reaction was instantaneous and merciless. Titan Group's stock didn't just dip, it plummeted into the abyss. Panic selling triggered algorithmic dumps, and within 48 hours, the company's valuation was utterly decimated. Because Charles Sterling had used immense leverage to buy in at the peak, the margin calls hit the Sterling Group like a carpet bombing. To cover the debts, Charles was forced to fire sell his core assets at pennies on the dollar. Overnight, the Sterling Group lost more than half of its total net worth. The empire Charles had built from the dirt was reduced to a bleeding, crippled carcass on the verge of bankruptcy. The enablers were falling, and Chloe Sterling was suddenly shoved off her pedestal into the harsh, unforgiving mud. It happened on a Friday afternoon. I was sitting in the VIP lounge of the campus cafe, sipping a customized espresso while reviewing a series of offshore accounts Uncle Grant had set up for my newly acquired Titan shares, which we had scooped up at rock bottom. The heavy glass doors swung open, and Chloe pushed past the cafe staff, looking frantic. Her designer uniform was wrinkled. The arrogant, self-righteous princess who had once held a paper knife to her own throat to defend Arthur was gone.
Henry, please, you have to tell them to let me through.
She begged as my bodyguards immediately formed a wall in front of my table. I raised 2 fingers. The guards parted just enough to let her stand at the edge of the table, though they kept their hands ready. "What do you want, Chloe?" I asked, my tone utterly flat. Tears streamed down her face. She looked at me with wide, desperate eyes, trying to summon the ghost of our childhood affection.
Henry, my dad, the banks are calling in the loans. We're going to lose everything. The house, the company, everything. I know we've had our differences lately, but we grew up together. You used to say you'd protect me from anything. You have the cash. Your private funds are untouched by the Winters Group's mess. Please, Henry, just a bridge loan. I'll do anything. I'll be yours, I swear.
She reached out, trying to grab my hand, but my bodyguard smoothly intercepted her wrist, pinning it gently but firmly back to her side. I looked at Chloe, feeling absolutely nothing. In my past life, this was the girl who had watched me get accused, beaten, and ruined, all while she hid behind Arthur, feeding him the very information he used to destroy me. Alone? I repeated softly, setting my espresso cup down on the saucer with a sharp clink. I reached into my briefcase, pulled out a sleek black folder, and slid it across the marble table toward her.
What is this?
Chloe sniffled, staring at the folder. "Open it," I said casually. With trembling hands, she flipped the cover open. Inside was a meticulously detailed, multi-page ledger. "That," I said, leaning back and crossing my legs, "is an itemized invoice. It covers the past 10 years. Every limited edition designer bag I bought for your birthdays, every private jet I chartered because you wanted to see the cherry blossoms in Kyoto, the 50 million yuan investment my grandfather made into your father's failing supply chain to save him from bankruptcy 5 years ago. It even includes an hourly rate for the emotional labor and time I wasted comforting you every time you threw a tantrum." Chloe's face drained of all color, her eyes darting over the terrifyingly precise numbers. The final tally at the bottom was astronomical. "You're asking me to save your family," I continued, my voice dropping to a freezing whisper. "But you seem to have forgotten that I already did. I gave you my loyalty, my resources, and my protection." And the second a manipulative, sniveling parasite with a fake smile walked into this school, you threw all of it back in my face. You held a knife to your own throat to defend the boy who was actively trying to destroy me.
Henry, I was wrong.
Chloe sobbed, clutching the folder to her chest as if it were a shield.
Arthur tricked me. He manipulated my thoughts.
I don't care. I cut her off, my eyes flashing with a cold, predatory light. Ignorance is not an excuse for betrayal. Keep the folder. Tell your father that I consider this debt paid in full. We are entirely, permanently even. If you or your family ever approach me for money again, I won't just let the banks bankrupt you. I will personally buy your debt and foreclose on your lives. I stood up, adjusting my cuffs. Now get out of my sight.
Henry, please.
Chloe wailed, reaching for me again, but the bodyguard seamlessly stepped in, grabbing her by the arms and forcibly marching her out of the VIP lounge. As she was being dragged out, kicking and screaming my name, her eyes inadvertently flicked across the courtyard window. Standing out there under an awning was Arthur. He was wearing a cheap, off-the-rack raincoat, clutching a bruised apple from the cafeteria. His allowance was gone. His halo was shattered. He looked utterly pathetic, broadcasting a weak, whiny internal thought about how unfair the rain was. Through the glass, Chloe locked eyes with Arthur. In that single, devastating moment, the delusion finally shattered completely. Chloe stopped screaming. A look of profound, agonizing realization washed over her face. She realized what she had done. She had thrown away a true king. a man who possessed the power, the wealth, and the foresight to rule the city, for a worthless, sniveling fraud who couldn't even save himself. She slumped in the guard's grip, her spirit completely broken, and was unceremoniously tossed out the front doors of the cafe. I watched her go, my reflection in the window, perfectly calm. The enablers were dust. Arthur was completely alone, isolated on an island of his own incompetence. The board was clearing beautifully, and the true Winters family was next. I just smirked, thinking about my plan to ruin my useless family. To understand the true nature of a parasite, you have to observe what happens when it runs out of healthy tissue to feed on. I had barricaded myself on the second floor of the villa, turning it into an impenetrable fortress guarded around the clock by Uncle Grant's elite operatives. I didn't interact with the people downstairs. I simply watched them through the high-definition security feeds I had installed throughout the first floor. Downstairs, the Winters family had become a toxic pressure cooker. Without me there to absorb their venom, the ecosystem of the house began to cannibalize itself, and the first to break was Diana. As autumn bled into a freezing winter, the sharp drop in temperature triggered Diana's chronic stress migraines. In my past life, and right up until my rebirth, I was the one who managed them. I had spent countless hours studying traditional Chinese medicine, meticulously boiling her herbal soups until my fingers were calloused and burned. I had mastered a complex acupuncture routine just to ease her pain, sitting by her bedside until dawn. Now she had nothing. The security monitors showed her writhing on the living room sofa, clutching her temples and screaming in sheer agony. The house staff, completely loyal to me now, did nothing but offer her standard painkillers, which her body had long grown immune to.
Arthur, please.
Diana gasped, her face pale and drenched in cold sweat.
Mum's head. Get me a warm towel. Pour the water.
Arthur hurried over, but he was entirely out of his depth. He had never taken care of anyone in his life. He grabbed a glass of water from the table, but his hands were careless. He tripped over the edge of the rug and spilled the freezing water directly onto Diana's chest and face. Diana shrieked, the shock of the cold amplifying her blinding headache. Instead of apologizing profusely, Arthur's face twisted in annoyance. Because his system was starving for the victim points it usually harvested from my reactions, its filters had begun to violently degrade. Whenever Arthur panicked or felt extreme smugness, the system short-circuited, bypassing his control and broadcasting his raw, unfiltered thoughts directly into the room.
Ugh, why is she screaming so loud? It's just a little water. This is so annoying. I'm missing my video game for this. Why can't she just take a pill and shut up?
Diana froze, her breath hitching in her throat. Through the haze of her blinding pain, a hallucination brought on by sheer agony took over. She looked at Arthur, but for a fleeting second, she saw me. She saw the memory of the 14-year-old Henry, carefully blowing on a spoonful of dark herbal soup, his own hands wrapped in bandages from the hot stove, looking at her with nothing but pure, unconditional love. The hallucination shattered. Reality snapped back, leaving only Arthur standing over her with a look of barely concealed disgust, whining internally about his video games. The realization hit Diana with the force of a physical blow. She let out a guttural, soul-tearing wail, not from the migraine, but from the crushing, suffocating weight of absolute guilt. She had traded a son who would have bled for her for a leech who couldn't even stand the sound of her voice. She curled into a fetal position on the wet rug, sobbing my name until her vocal cords gave out. I watched it all from my monitor, took a sip of my tea, and switched the camera to the hallway. Without me as the designated punching bag, my 6 sisters were also growing restless. They were vain, arrogant women who thrived on drama and superiority. For months, they had coddled Arthur, using him as a prop to prove how nurturing they were. But Arthur was getting greedy. His allowance from George had been severely slashed due to the company's bleeding finances. He needed cash to maintain his facade at school. One evening, he cornered my eldest sister Lily and my 4th sister Rose in the foyer. He put on his best puppy dog eyes, sobbing about how the other rich kids were mocking him for wearing a last season watch.
Sisters, I know things are tight, but I feel so humiliated,
he whimpered. Lily sighed, reaching into her designer purse to pull out her platinum card.
All right, Arthur. Just this once. We can't have people looking down on our family.
Arthur took the card, a brilliant, grateful smile on his face. But greed makes people sloppy. Starved of its usual energy, the system's broken filters misfired again. In his moment of triumph, it broadcasted his true, unfiltered smugness directly into Lily and Rose's minds.
God, these stupid spinsters are so unbelievably easy to manipulate. Squeeze out 2 fake tears and they turn into emotional ATMs. Just tell them what they want to hear. They're nothing but stepping stones anyway.
The foyer plunged into a deathly, suffocating silence. Arthur's smile faltered. He looked up, realizing too late what had just happened. Lily's hand shot out with lightning speed. Smack! Her diamond ring tore a gash across Arthur's cheek as she slapped him with every ounce of strength she had. Arthur crumpled to the floor, screaming in shock.
You little ungrateful parasite!
Lily shrieked, her face contorted in pure, venomous rage as she snatched her platinum card right out of his hand.
Stepping stones? Stupid spinsters?
Rose stepped forward and kicked him hard in the ribs.
We alienated our own biological brother for you. You filthy little fraud. Don't you ever speak to us again. You're dead to me.
From that day on, Arthur became the new punching bag. The sisters stripped him of his designer clothes, kicked him out of their social circles, and subjected him to the exact same psychological torment they had once reserved for me. The illusion was dead. But the final, fatal blow to the family's dynamic came from George. Desperate to prove that he hadn't made a catastrophic mistake and needing to validate his decision to adopt Arthur, George made a monumentally stupid corporate maneuver. He assigned Arthur as the figurehead manager of a minor logistics acquisition for the Winters Group, hoping a quick PR win would boost the company's plummeting stock. Arthur, whose entire intellect consisted of reading cheat system prompts and playing the victim, was financially illiterate. He wanted to play the hotshot CEO. He met with the opposing firm, skimmed the contract, and eagerly signed it, broadcasting thoughts about how he was a natural-born business genius. What he didn't realize was that the opposing firm was a shell company secretly owned by Uncle Grant and me. Arthur had signed a legally binding contract that locked the Winters Group into purchasing highly toxic, depreciating assets at a 400% markup, complete with ironclad penalty clauses for backing out. When the legal department flagged it, the damage was already done. The Winters Group lost $30 million overnight. George completely lost his mind. I could hear his roars from the second floor as he beat Arthur with a golf club in the living room, screaming about how he had adopted a worthless, brain-dead curse. Driven to the brink of corporate ruin, George finally tried to play his last, desperate hand. He attempted to forcefully seize my 30% inherited shares early to liquidate and save the company's cash flow. But Uncle Grant immediately buried him in a mountain of legal injunctions, stalling the seizure indefinitely. Blocked from my trust and desperate to cover the $30 million margin before the company collapsed, George was forced to take out massive, high-interest collateral loans. He didn't know it yet, but he was signing his own death warrant. The trap had been set for exactly 1 year. A predator doesn't rush the kill. It waits until the prey has exhausted every last ounce of its strength, leaving it with no avenue for escape. The initial capital I had secured by shorting the Titan Group hadn't just sat idle in offshore accounts. While George was distracted by the chaos of Arthur's catastrophic logistics blunder and the Sterling family's collapse, Uncle Grant and I were moving like shadows through the financial underbelly of Granville City. We used our massive war chest to systematically buy out every disgruntled, panicking minority shareholder of the Winters Group. They were desperate to jump ship before George drove the company into the ground, and we were more than happy to buy their equity at a premium. By the time summer arrived, the board was quietly stacked with our proxies. But the true, undeniable killing blow could only be struck on one specific day, the 12th of July 2026, my 18th birthday. At exactly 9 a.m., the ironclad legal trust left behind by my grandfather executed automatically. The 30% of the Winters Group, the very shares that had made my mother and sisters seethe with jealousy for years, were officially, irreversibly transferred into my name. Combined with the 25% I had acquired through Uncle Grant's proxies, I now held a 55% majority voting right. I was no longer an heir in waiting. I was the absolute, undisputed king of the corporate empire. But George Winters, driven mad by his plunging net worth and his desperate need to prove he hadn't destroyed his own legacy, refused to see the writing on the wall. He believed he could outrun the clock. At 10 a.m., George convened an emergency board meeting at the apex of the Winters Group headquarters. He dragged a bruised, terrified Arthur into the room with him. In a last-ditch, delusional attempt to retain power, George planned to formally name Arthur as the heir to his remaining 15% stake, an attempt to push through a corporate restructuring, a poison pill meant to dilute my incoming shares before the trust's ink could fully dry. I stood outside the heavy oak doors of the boardroom, adjusting the cuffs of my bespoke charcoal suit. Uncle Grant stood to my right, leaning on his cane, a predatory smirk playing on his lips. To my left stood a phalanx of the most ruthless, high-powered corporate lawyers in the country. Through the thick wood, I could hear George's frantic shouting voice.
The boy is a rogue asset.
George was ranting to the silent board members.
Henry is actively trying to dismantle this family's legacy. I am still the chairman of this board, and I am proposing an immediate issue of new Class B shares to dilute the old master's trust. Furthermore, Arthur will be named Executive Vice President, effective immediately.
Arthur stood next to the podium, sweating profusely in an ill-fitting suit. His system, sensing his sheer panic, weakly attempted to broadcast his thoughts to the executives in the room.
I'm just a humble son trying to help my dad. Why are these scary board members glaring at me? I'm so innocent and small. Please vote for me.
A few executives literally rolled their eyes. This was high-stakes corporate finance, not a high school playground. Sympathy didn't move billions of dollars. I pushed the oak doors open. They hit the walls with a resounding heavy thud. The entire room went dead silent. I walked in, my footsteps echoing against the polished marble floor. My legal team fanned out behind me, dropping massive, thick binders onto the center of the mahogany table.
What is the meaning of this?
George roared, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple.
Security! Get him out of here! He has no authorization to be in this building.
None of the security guards moved. They all looked to Uncle Grant, who gave a minute shake of his head. I ignored George entirely. I walked to the head of the table, stopping just a few feet away from where he stood. I didn't yell. I spoke with a voice as calm and cold as a razor blade. As of 9 a.m. this morning, I am the legal owner of 55% of the Winters Group, I announced, my gaze sweeping over the board members, who all respectfully lowered their heads in acknowledgement. This meeting is out of order. The proposed resolution is vetoed, and George Winters is officially stripped of his title as chairman.
You lying little brat!
George shrieked, slamming his fists on the table.
I own 15%. You can't just throw me out on the street. I am your father. I am a founding pillar of this company.
You were. I corrected softly. I snapped my fingers. My lead attorney stepped forward, sliding a single, terrifyingly concise document across the table toward George. You see, George, when Arthur signed that catastrophic logistics contract last month, you panicked, I explained, relishing the look of dawning horror in his eyes. To cover the $30 million margin, you took out massive, high-interest collateral loans. But you didn't read the fine print of who actually purchased your debt. George stared at the document. His hands began to shake violently. I bought your debt, I whispered, leaning in so only he and Arthur could hear the finality in my voice. And you have defaulted. I am executing a hostile takeover of your remaining assets. I am seizing your 15% stake, your personal bank accounts, and the deed to the old estate to cover what you owe me. I straightened my tie, looking down at him. You have nothing. You are nothing. Arthur let out a pathetic squeak, taking a step back.
No. He can't do this. I'm supposed to be the heir. System, do something. Make them feel sorry for me. Make them hate him.
His inner voice screamed into the room, but it was drowned out by the crushing, undeniable weight of legal and financial reality. The board members simply looked at Arthur with disgust. George's mouth opened and closed like a dying fish. He looked at the paperwork, then at Uncle Grant, and finally at me. The absolute totality of his ruin crashed down upon him. He had alienated his true son, destroyed his company, and thrown away his legacy for a parasitic fraud who was currently cowering in the corner. Suddenly, George's hands flew to his chest. He let out a strangled, agonizing gasp. His face drained of all color, turning a sickly, ashen gray. His knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the boardroom table, scattering the legal documents before sliding off the edge and hitting the floor with a heavy thud.
Dad!
Arthur screamed. But Arthur didn't drop to his knees to perform CPR. He didn't hold George's hand. Instead, Arthur backed away, his eyes darting frantically toward the exit. His thoughts were a chaotic, selfish mess.
If he dies, who's going to pay for my life? I need to get out of here. I need to find Mom.
Call an ambulance, I instructed one of the executives, calmly, not taking my eyes off the gasping, writhing man on the floor. I stepped over George's twitching legs, walked around the head of the table, and pulled out the heavy, leather-bound chairman's chair. As the paramedics rushed into the room to load the broken, hyperventilating husk of George Winters onto a stretcher, I took my seat. The entire board of directors stood up and clapped in a synchronized, thundering applause, welcoming their new king. I was 18 years old. I had conquered my demons, crushed my enemies, and taken my rightful throne. And as I watched George being wheeled out, clinging weakly to life, I knew exactly what awaited him when he was finally discharged from the hospital later that afternoon. The rain outside the floor-to-ceiling windows was beginning to fall, heavy and unforgiving. It was the perfect weather for an eviction. The opposite of love is not hatred. Hatred requires passion. Hatred requires you to look at a person and feel something. No, the true opposite of love and the ultimate, most devastating revenge a human being can inflict is absolute indifference. The collapse of the Winters family was a spectacle, but the destruction of Arthur was profoundly quiet. It happened 3 days after George's heart attack, in the sterile, depressing waiting room of the cardiac ward. Arthur's allowance was gone. The family's shares were seized. The sisters despised him, and Diana could barely look at him without having a psychological breakdown. He was cornered, stripped of the unearned wealth and status that had shielded him. Desperate, Arthur tried to use his cheat system one last time. He tried to force a broadcast into the minds of my sisters and Diana, who were huddled miserably on the waiting room chairs.
Please.
His inner voice whimpered weakly, lacking its usual manipulative polish.
I'm just a boy. It's not my fault. Love me again.
But a parasite cannot survive when the host is dead, and Arthur's system was designed for a high-status protagonist, not a universally despised, impoverished fraud. Suddenly, a mechanical, synthesized voice, one that didn't belong to Arthur, echoed directly into the minds of everyone in the room.
Critical error. Host status, bankrupt. Social influence, 0. Threat level, 0. Narrative value, depleted. Conclusion, failed host.
Arthur's eyes went wide with sheer terror.
No! Wait! Give me another chance! System, don't leave me!
He screamed aloud, clawing at his own face.
Initiating forceful uninstallation. Severing neural link.
Arthur let out a blood-curdling shriek. He grabbed his head, his body convulsing violently as if he had been struck by 1,000,000 volts of electricity. He thrashed against the linoleum floor, foam bubbling from his lips, his eyes rolling back so far only the whites were visible. My sisters screamed, shrinking back against the walls. Diana froze in horror. The convulsion lasted exactly 30 seconds, then Arthur went entirely still. When the doctors finally rushed out and stabilized him, the diagnosis was catastrophic. The violent uninstallation of the system had irreparably fried his frontal lobe. The manipulative, scheming genius who had stolen my life was gone. What remained was a permanent, drooling, vegetative husk. He couldn't speak, he couldn't walk, and he couldn't form a single coherent thought. He would spend the rest of his miserable life staring blankly at the ceiling, trapped in a prison of his own empty mind. With the parasite neutralized, it was time to cleanse the estate. I returned to the ancestral villa and summoned the remnants of the Winters family to the grand foyer. George had been discharged from the hospital, though the stroke induced by his heart attack had confined him to a wheelchair, the left side of his face permanently paralyzed. Diana stood beside him, looking aged by 20 years, trembling like a leaf. My 6 sisters, once the arrogant, untouchable princesses of Granville City, stood in a miserable, shivering line. Uncle Grant's bodyguards had already packed their bags. A meager pile of cheap suitcases sat by the front doors. "You have exactly 1 hour to vacate my property," I said, my voice echoing off the high marble ceilings.
Henry, please.
Lily, my eldest sister, choked out, falling to her knees.
We have nowhere to go. Our accounts are frozen. The creditors took our apartments. Rose hasn't eaten in 2 days. Please, Henry, you're our brother.
I signaled to Uncle Grant. He stepped forward with a stack of legally binding contracts, tossing one at the feet of each family member. "You are destitute," I stated calmly, looking over their pathetic, weeping faces. But because my grandfather would not want to see his bloodline starve in the gutters, I have established a trust. Each of you will receive a monthly stipend of exactly $3,000. It is enough for a cramped apartment, cheap groceries, and basic survival. They looked up, a glimmer of desperate hope flashing in their eyes. However, I continued, crushing that hope instantly. The stipend is conditional. To receive it, you must sign the non-contact agreement in front of you. If you ever call my phone, if you ever approach my properties, if you ever utter my name in public or attempt to claim familial ties to me in any capacity, the stipend will be permanently revoked. You will cease to exist in my world, or you will starve. Sign them. Rose began to sob uncontrollably. Diana covered her face, the reality of her failure breaking her completely. Even George, slumped in his wheelchair, wept silently, his good hand shaking as he picked up the pen. They had no choice. One by one, they signed away their right to ever be my family again. A month later, August arrived, bringing with it the torrential, unrelenting rains of the monsoon season. It was the day I was leaving Granville City for good. I had been accepted into the capital's top-tier university, ready to expand my corporate empire on a national scale. My luggage was loaded into the convoy of bulletproof Bentley Mulsans. As I walked out of the heavy oak doors of the mansion, the skies opened up, unleashing a freezing, deafening downpour. Uncle Grant stepped perfectly in sync with me, opening a massive black umbrella to shield me from the storm. As we approached the iron gates of the estate, the motorcade halted. There, standing in the torrential rain, completely exposed to the elements, was my biological family. George sat shivering in his wheelchair, soaked to the bone. Diana and the 6 sisters stood around him. Their clothes were cheap, ruined by the mud and the rain. They looked like drowned rats, shivering and pitiful. They had broken the non-contact agreement just to stand here, desperate for one final chance. As I approached the gates, they fell to their knees in the puddles.
Henry.
Diana wailed, her voice cracking over the roar of the thunder. She reached her hands through the iron bars of the gate.
We're sorry. We know we were wrong. We traded a dragon for a leech, and we are paying the price. Please, Henry, let us in. Let us be a family again. We will serve you. We will do anything. Just look at us. Look at your mother.
My sisters were sobbing, crying out apologies that were a year too late, begging for forgiveness that no longer existed. I stopped walking. I stood under the dry, quiet sanctuary of Uncle Grant's umbrella, just inches out of their reach. I looked at Diana. I looked at the wheelchair-bound George. I looked at the sisters who had once watched me be beaten with a rattan cane without batting an eye. I searched my heart for a flicker of emotion. I searched for the agonizing grief I had felt in my past life. I searched for the burning, volcanic hatred that had fueled me when I was first reborn. There was nothing, just a vast, chilling emptiness. I didn't yell, I didn't scold them. I simply reached into the breast pocket of my tailored suit, pulled out a laminated legal document, and dropped it onto the wet asphalt at their feet. Diana scrambled forward, her trembling, muddy fingers snatching up the paper. She read it, and a sound of pure, unadulterated devastation ripped from her throat. It was a finalized name change certificate. "You are addressing a stranger," I said, my voice cutting through the rain with the cold precision of a scalpel. "As of this morning, I have legally abandoned the surname Winters. I have taken my great-grandmother's maiden name. The son you are looking for died a long time ago." George let out a guttural sob, burying his face in his only working hand. Diana collapsed against the iron gates, her spirit entirely shattered, knowing that she hadn't just lost a son, she had erased him from her lineage entirely. I turned my back on them. The bodyguard opened the door to the Bentley. I stepped into the quiet, climate-controlled luxury of the back seat, the soft leather embracing me. "Drive," I commanded softly. The engine roared to life. The massive iron gates swung open and the convoy accelerated smoothly onto the rain-slicked highway. I didn't look out the window. I didn't turn my head. I simply watched them in the rearview mirror as they faded into the gray, stormy distance, kneeling in the mud, screaming the name of a boy who no longer existed. The ghosts of my past were dead. The vacuum was sealed. And as the Bentley carried me toward the capital, I ascended to the very top of the world, entirely and beautifully alone. Fuck those people. I don't need family like them.